Welcome aboard. Stay tuned and subscribe to Han Li's Wuxia Adventures for more thrilling content. Chapter 121. Half a minute later, the two finally separated, both panting heavily. This was the first time Lu Yin had felt so exhausted against a sentinel. Hart felt the same way, but it was a pity that he was the only one who could hear them in this space. Otherwise, he would have asked where this person was from for him to be able to keep up with him. Hart Phoenix had fought to this point, but it was time to end it. No one could defeat the Phoenix family. With a boom, golden flames soared into the sky, forming an immortal bird that soared through the void. Lu Yin was shocked. This person hadn't even used his full strength. Hart was displaying an unbelievable amount of power, and the golden flames shocked him. With a high-pitched cry, even the stone platform was vaporized. The world was filled with golden flames, and Hart walked out like an emperor of flames, pressing down with both palms as golden flames swept towards Lu Yin. Lu Yin's gaze turned solemn as he raised his palms and activated 6 stars, but it wasn't enough. Against Hart's golden flames, the 6 stars of Sirius palm was still lacking. Lu Yin growled and the golden flames around him descended. The last star and the 7th star vaguely appeared, but they weren't fully activated. However, because there was a faint shadow, the power of Sirius palm increased explosively. He charged towards Hart and struck out with his palm, the 7 stars tearing through the flames and descending in front of Hart. Hart's pupils shrank and he instinctively used the flames to protect himself. Boom! Shockwaves shot out in all directions as the two's attacks caused the ground to sink. Lu Yin's Sirius palm didn't hit Hart, but it did disperse the flames around his body. He raised his left hand and slammed a 6-stack shockwave palm into Hart's abdomen. Hart spat out a mouthful of blood, growling as he turned around and kicked Lu Yin away. Lu Yin took a few steps back and disappeared with flash, appearing behind Hart once more. He raised his hand and used Sirius palm. Hart turned around and gritted his teeth, a flaming bird appearing around his body and chirping loudly. This was an immortal bird. He wouldn't be defeated so easily. Lu Yin's Sirius palm landed firmly on Hart's body, not only dispersing the flaming bird around his body, but also sending him flying. Hart roared. The golden flames merged with his body and his body rapidly recovered. Lu Yin was shocked. This feeling reminded him of Qingyu, who was also unkillable. No, I can't give him a chance to catch his breath. With that in mind, Lu Yin immediately flashed in front of Qingyu and used the Sirius palm with both hands. The golden bird flew out from Hart's palm and collided with Lu Yin. Sirius palm and the golden bird collided more than 10 times in a row, and Lu Yin found it difficult to bear. Hart was in the same situation. His innate gift was very high, but it could not be used endlessly. If it was used too frequently, it would eventually overdraw. When the golden bird collided with Sirius's palm once more, Hart was unable to withstand the impact and fainted. Lu Yin's star energy was almost completely depleted, and when he saw that Hart had revealed an opening, he unleashed another 6 stacks of shockwave palms that scattered Hart's entire body. This battle had allowed Lu Yin to truly experience how terrifying the geniuses of the Innerverse were. That person was only a sentinel, but he had been able to force Lu Yin to such an extent. If not for his increased control of star energy and the Rainmaster's help in deducing the layering power, this battle would have boded ill rather than well. He had been too arrogant to think that he was invincible among sentinels. He didn't know what level that person was in the Innerverse, but he should be from there. Lu Yin opened his eyes and looked outside. He saw Michelle's inquisitive gaze and Meng Yu's shocked expression. This battle had taken a long time, but it wasn't over yet. He could continue even if he won, but he still had to go back in. At the same time, in the gloomy forest of Astral 5 in the Innerverse, Hart Phoenix stood up from the teleportation stone with an ugly expression on his face. He had been defeated by someone at the same level as him, which was a great humiliation. He was the heir of the Phoenix family and the younger brother of that person, but he had actually been defeated. That person called him 7th bro. He had to wash away this humiliation. As he walked out of the teleportation stone's range, many people looked over. Junior Hart, how was it? Did you complete your 3 consecutive victories? There's no need to ask. Junior Hart definitely did it. Hart didn't pay attention to these people as he wanted to cultivate. 7th bro was definitely someone from one of the 10 academies. The other powers with teleportation stones all had obvious characteristics, But this person didn't. He was most likely someone from one of the academies, and this person might appear during the academy tournament. Heart had to defeat him. Lu Yin entered the ported battle's battlefield once more. This time it was a swamp and there was already someone in front of him. When he saw his opponent, Lu Yin's heart sank and he felt like vomiting blood. This was Brother Defeng, the first opponent he had faced since entering the ported battles. He was the absolute powerhouse who had instantly killed him. The moment Lu Yin appeared, Brother Defeng attacked. A void-destroying star energy swept out, and Lu Yin was instantly killed again. This time he hadn't been able to do anything to stop Brother Defeng, which was depressing. Lu Yin walked out of the teleportation stone's range and heard the elder's announcement. Lu Yin, 1 victory, 7 defeats. You actually won. Meng Yu was shocked. Lu Yin ignored him and looked at Michelle. You're from the Immerse. Have you heard of the Phoenix family? Michelle was shocked. You met someone from the Phoenix family? Lu Yin nodded. That's one of the strongest clans in the Immerse. It's understandable that you lost. She then stepped into the teleportation stone's range. Lu Yin was about to tell her that he had won, but then he thought better of it. The Phoenix family? They were indeed worthy of being called a strong clan. Lu Yin had fought so hard against a sentinel, so he couldn't imagine how terrifying their melders and limiters were. It was tempting to enter the trial zones with 100 victories, but everyone knew their limits. Before they were confident, most would cultivate quietly. Only Lu Yin and a few others remained at the trial zone entrance. Not long after, Meng Yu left as well. He hadn't even won a single match. Only Lu Yin and Michelle were left at the trial zone entrance to challenge the ported battles. Unknowingly, Lu Yin had fought 12 matches and won 2, which shocked Michelle. She couldn't believe that a sentinel's win rate in a ported battle was about the same as hers. Sometimes one had to rely on luck. Lu Yin's 13th and 14th matches had been against sentinels who gave him the impression that they were all new students. His luck was heaven-defying, but his 15th opponent was troublesome, a Sylvan dragon. During Astral 10's entrance exam, the 3 major powers had attacked the Sylvan dragon, but Lu Yin hadn't met it and didn't know who it was. Now his opponent for the 15th ported battle was a Sylvan dragon. Lu Yin stared blankly at the giant beast in front of him. Were there really such beasts in ported battles? What's more, this beast had a code name above its head. Draconic 8. With a whoosh, Draconic 8 charged at Lu Yin and swiped down with its claws. A terrifying Melder's star energy swept out, suppressing the space around him in an attempt to immobilize him. Against a limiter, Lu Yin wouldn't have been able to move at all. He would have had to either attack the opponent's star energy or the opponent's body, but against a melder, his star energy control allowed him to easily evade and escape the suppression. Draconic 8 hadn't expected Lu Yin to be able to dodge, and he was stunned for a moment. His huge body stood up straight and then split into 2. The 2 dragons covered the sky, their sharp claws moving in a strange pattern to seal off Lu Yin's escape route, forcing him to face them head-on. Lu Yin raised his hand and unleashed a 6-stack shockwave palm. Boom. The ground shattered as the battle took place in a swamp. Lu Yin and Draconic 8 clashed head-on and were blasted into the ground. Draconic 8 retreated a few steps, its claws trembling from the recoil. It was shocked that a mere sentinel could injure it. Was Lu Yin from one of the Immerse top clans? Lu Yin leapt out of the swamp and stared at Draconic 8, 6 stars revolving in his palm. This beast was very strong and definitely not an ordinary melder. It was worthy of being his opponent in the ported battles. Lu Yin had guessed that his 6 stars would be enough to threaten Gerbok, and when his star energy control reached the realm of infinite change, his 6-star Sirius palm would definitely surpass Gerbok's and even surpass Schutz's. This meant that he was currently the strongest in the Great Yu Empire. Even so, he still lost more than he won in ported battles. No, he rarely won, and his battle with Heart Phoenix had left a deep impression on him. Heart Phoenix was definitely stronger than Schutz, but he was only a sentinel. This was how terrifying the geniuses of the Immerse were. Even if this beast wasn't a genius, it was still no ordinary melder. It would be difficult for Lu Yin to defeat it, especially with its terrifying speed. Suddenly, Draconic 8's body swayed and split into 2. Lu Yin was just about to attack when his eyes narrowed as Draconic 8's body split into 5. Welcome aboard. Stay tuned and subscribe to Han Li's Wuxia Adventures for more thrilling content. Chapter 122. Lu Yin was stunned by the sudden appearance of the 5 dragons. How was this possible? This was definitely not an ordinary extreme speed, but an innate talent. This exotic beast had an innate talent for extreme speed. The dragons attacked him from all directions, sealing off all his escape routes and forcing him to face them head-on. Lu Yin gritted his teeth and activated the art of Sirius, 6 stars appearing around him with a 7th vaguely visible. He looked past the Sirius and saw Draconic 8 moving at extreme speed. Although it had split into 5, there was only one main body. This was extreme speed. Lu Yin wasn't afraid. His art of Sirius was the bane of extreme speed. Sirius raised its palm high, a 7th star appearing around it as well. Draconic 8's eyes widened in shock. How could this be? This human had actually found its main body. Lu Yin's palm slammed into Draconic 8's head, causing it to howl in agony as the 7 stars exploded, the terrifying force knocking it unconscious. Victory Lu Yin. Lu Yin panted heavily, overjoyed that he had won 3 in a row. He had completed the highest sentinel mission. The scene in front of him changed and he appeared beneath the teleportation stone. He turned to look outside and saw that Michelle wasn't alone. Coco, Hui Day Night and Little Pao were there as well. He didn't walk out, instead entering the ported battles once more to see if he could achieve 4 in a row. With his current strength he could win with a bit of luck. However, his heart sank when he saw his 16th opponent. He had only seen a single sword strike and that was it. He hadn't even seen his opponent's codename before he'd been insta-killed. This was definitely an explorer, a freak. There was no lack of freaks like this in ported battles, which was why luck was important. Some people were strong but had terrible results, while others were weak and even sentinels, but could achieve consecutive victories. Luck was also a part of one's strength. As he walked out of the teleportation stone, the old man's voice rang out. Lu Yin, 7 wins, 18 losses. Not far away, Michelle was shocked. This sentinel had actually won 3 in a row. Hui Day Night clenched his fists. His record was 3 wins and 52 losses. How could a mere ant surpass him? Coco was shocked. Big brother Lu, your results are so high. The one with the best results among us is Dark Void, with an average of 1 win in every 4 matches. After him is big sister Michelle with an average of 1 win in every 5 matches. You're pretty amazing. He patted her head. I was just lucky. Hui Day Night's voice was cold. How many sentinels did you encounter? Lu Yin thought for a moment. 3. Hui Day Night disdainfully replied. He's really lucky. Although the Day Night clan was a powerful clan, Hui Day Night wasn't that strong. Even when he had just entered the academy, Lu Yin was confident that he could defeat Hui Day Night, let alone now. Big brother Lu, are you hurt? Do you need Coco to treat you? Coco asked expectantly. An image of a giant syringe appeared in Lu Yin's mind, but he quickly shook his head. No need. The ported battles aren't real, so I won't get hurt. Coco was disappointed. Congratulations on completing the Sentinel mission, Junior Lu. You've won 3 consecutive ported battles, Little Pao congratulated. Hui Day Night's expression turned even uglier. Lu Yin smiled. I was just lucky, I couldn't stop it. Little Pao smiled. I don't believe in luck. Anyone who enters the ported battles is an absolute elite, the top geniuses of their respective domains in the Outerverse. Many of them are even famous throughout the universe and they're not easy to defeat. Otherwise, the mission would have been completed long ago. Congratulations, keep working hard and try to win 30 matches in a row as soon as possible. Coco was puzzled. 30 matches in a row? Senior Little Pao, is there a reason? Is the academy going to reward me? Little Pao smiled. 30 matches in a row qualifies you to challenge the top 100 rankings. Lu Yin's gaze turned cold. The top 100 rankings was a list of the top 100 powerhouses in the universe. It was set by the Astral Combat Academy, and Wendy Yushan was one of the top 20. Anyone who entered the top 100 rankings would immediately become famous throughout the universe, and they could easily join the 10 Arbiters Council. A single word from them could decide the rise and fall of an organization, and their value was much higher than King Zishan's. Coco stuck out her tongue. I'm not counting on the top 100 rankings, those people are all perverts. Little Pao smiled. You have to have a goal, and for you guys, your short-term goal is the freshman competition. I'm here to inform you that the freshman competition will be held in a month, and the reward for the champion of the competition will be extraordinary. What reward? Coco asked expectantly. Little Pao raised a finger. It's a secret. Coco was disappointed. Michelle glanced at Lu Yin and walked towards the teleportation stone. Lu Yin bid farewell to Little Pao and Coco, heading to the treasury to claim his reward. Of the missions issued by the Astral Combat Academy, some were for individual academies, while others were public missions. These missions were usually extremely difficult to complete, but once completed, it would immediately cause a stir in all 10 academies. One of the top Sentinel missions, 3 consecutive victories in a ported battle, was a public mission. Heart Phoenix's goal was this, but unfortunately he had met Lu Yin in the 3rd round and had been eliminated. Once Lu Yin completed the mission, it was automatically cancelled. In Astral 9, someone actually completed the top Sentinel mission, and it's someone from Astral 10. Looks like Astral 10 is going to rise up. Astral 10 is in the Frostwave Weave. Do they have any geniuses there? It must be someone from a powerful Innerverse clan. In Astral 5, Junior Heart's mission was completed by someone else. Is his name Lu Yin? A sentinel who can achieve 3 consecutive victories in a ported battle is a genius. It's a pity that he's from Astral 10. He'll definitely vanish. In Astral 1, the top sentinel mission? What a joke. This mission isn't too difficult for some people, but they don't want to be noticed. Astral 10 is too narrow-minded if they want to use this method to become famous. Don't say that. We have to give Astral 10 some face, even if it's just a place of exile. Not too far away, a beautiful woman glanced back and stared at Lu Yin's name before turning to leave. In the treasury, an old man with a handlebar mustache sized Lu Yin up in amazement, occasionally making a buzzing sound. Lu Yin felt a chill run down his spine. Mentor, can you give me my reward now? The old man cackled. Kid, calling me mentor is too formal. Just call me Old Kai from now on. Lu Yin's brows rose. Old Kai? Old Kai nodded in satisfaction. Not bad, not bad. It's been a long time since Astral 10 made a name for itself. You're the first, kid. Not bad. Lu Yin humbly replied. I was just lucky. Old Kai waved his hand. Luck is also a part of one's strength. Alright, kid, here's your reward. Continue to work hard and complete a few more public missions to help Astral 10 become famous. He then tossed a cosmic ring to Lu Yin. Lu Yin caught it and saw that there were 10,000 star crystals inside. He was excited. He finally had money again, and 10,000 was definitely not a small amount. The Aurora spacecraft is at the space station. Belongs to you, kid. That's an Aurora, you ungrateful wretch. Work hard. He then dismissed Lu Yin. Lu Yin immediately went to the space station and found an Aurora spacecraft. He immediately authenticated it and made it his own. Many of the Astral Combat Academy's resources were sponsored by various large organizations, and the same went for the Aurora spacecraft. The Aurora spacecraft looked like a normal spacecraft, but Lu Yin had obtained a personal spacecraft that was less than 3 meters in diameter. Compared to normal spacecraft, the Aurora spacecraft had an additional flaw called an energy conversion device. This type of spacecraft relied purely on energy components to move and jump through space and time. Rare materials had to be placed into the device to transform the spacecraft structure. This was the core technology of the Aurora Corporation and was rumored to have originated from ancient technology. It involved the tiniest particles of the universe, and the more precious and powerful the materials, the faster the spacecraft would be upgraded. This was why Old Kai had said that the Aurora spacecraft were ungrateful wretches. This type of spacecraft required countless precious materials, and once it was upgraded, its performance would far surpass that of a normal spacecraft. Lu Yin had done his research and found that the Aurora spacecraft he bought were all at the basic grade. Its performance was comparable to a normal spacecraft, and some of its performance was even worse. This was because it had a flaw in the energy conversion device, sacrificing some of its performance. However, once it was upgraded to the Radiant grade, its performance would be completely different. Not only would it be 10 times faster than a normal spacecraft, it could even defend against cruisers' attacks. Welcome aboard. Stay tuned and subscribe to Han Li's Wuxia Adventures for more thrilling content. Chapter 123. If it was upgraded again, it would reach the black hole grade, which would allow it to travel 100 times faster than normal spaceships. It could defend against attacks from hunters and tear open a black hole in the universe. It was rumored that there was a cosmic grade above that, but Lu Yin couldn't find out the specifics. The Aurora Corporation's slogan was that jumping was equivalent to flying, which meant that normal spaceships needed to jump through wormholes to travel great distances, but the Aurora Corporation didn't. The two would take about the same amount of time, a testament to the corporation's confidence. Lu Yin touched the ship. The material was cold and sturdy. This was good stuff. It could be sold for at least 50 billion cosmic credits. With it, he could be considered rich. He didn't plan on leaving for the time being, so he left the space station and headed for the Rain Observatory. It was time to break through to the Melder realm. On a stone platform atop a tree far away from the teleportation device, Lu Yin took out his formcast model. This formcast model had belonged to Terrence. He'd obtained the formcast model after Terrence's death during the Battle of Jinlin and had been waiting to break through to the Melder realm. He'd originally wanted to find the corpse on Neptune and obtain a better formcast model, but he hadn't expected Qingyu to still be alive, which had led to a series of events. Lu Yin sat on the stone platform and watched the dark green rain cover the sky. He took a deep breath, cut his finger and pressed the formcast model onto his fingertip. Breakthrough Melder. The next moment, intense pain engulfed his entire body. The familiar pain caused his eyes to light up as his body suffered inhumane torture. His cells burned and reformed, and it was as if he could see the starry sky and an invincible powerhouse pressing down on him. Every breath he took felt like he was experiencing the universe and his body was adapting to it. The star energy that filled his body became extremely scarce, and his body craved for star energy. Lu Yin's gaze was resolute as he felt his body grow stronger. This was the strength of a Melder. He was about to break through. Suddenly, his shirt was torn apart as runes flickered on his back, forming a lock that pierced through his shoulder blades and locked his body in place. This was a seal that had appeared before. The formcast model within Lu Yin's body shattered the moment it appeared, unable to withstand the pressure. Lu Yin's eyes widened in disbelief. His brain was shaken the moment the formcast model shattered, and he almost fainted. He'd failed. The Rain Master walked out of the rain and frowned at Lu Yin. The seal is preventing this child from breaking through. Who placed it? So cruel. On the other side, an old man in ragged clothes stepped out of the void and pressed a palm against Lu Yin's back. A terrifying power spread out, instantly filling the entire astral, and even the heavens, causing the surrounding stars to tremble. He was suppressing the seal while his other hand streaked across the void, slowly forming a new formcast model that fused into Lu Yin's body. Lu Yin was on the verge of fainting. He hadn't expected to fail. He'd clearly felt like he was about to break through to the Melder realm, so why had he failed? Just as he was about to lose all hope, another huge force appeared and continued to suppress his body, allowing his body to continue molding. His cells were burning and his blood was being reconstructed. Lu Yin gritted his teeth. His body molding had not yet failed. Although he did not know where this new energy was coming from, as long as it existed, he could continue molding. Behind Lu Yin, the old man's eyes were serene, and it was as if the stars were spinning around him. His right hand suddenly exerted strength, causing a crack to appear on the lock-shaped seal. The crack gradually spread until it finally shattered with a bang. At the same time, the entire starry sky shook. In the sand ocean, a middle-aged man raised his head in surprise. In the treasure pavilion, old Kai was bewildered. At the domain entrance, the old man opened his eyes, deep in thought. In stargazing deck, someone raised his head. Beneath the curtain of rain, the Rain Master was shocked. Lu Yin, who was in the midst of breaking through to the Melder realm, once again saw the jade finger that crushed the void. This time he saw something different. He saw the endless distance behind the jade finger, and the pair of resplendent eyes that reflected the stars in the sky. They were absolutely beautiful and noble. At the same time, his body glowed as if it had come back to life. The old man in ragged clothes looked at Lu Yin, deep in thought. The Rain Master hesitated. This is an ancient seal. It's a very ancient seal and I can only break it with brute force. Unfortunately, I only managed to break one seal, the old man said indifferently. The Rain Master's expression changed. Is there more than one seal? The old man nodded and raised his head, a look of reminiscence in his eyes. I think I've seen this seal before, but I can't remember. It's very ancient and terrifying, and it's used on a child. What's the effect? The Rainmaster asked curiously. His physical body was sealed. We sealed this child's innate gift, turning him from an innate gift unique to his race into an ordinary person. Now he's finally starting to display his true power. Unfortunately, it's only his physical body, the elder said. The old man sighed. It's very difficult to break the seal below. Last time I almost killed the child when I went crazy. This time I'll repay my debt. The formcast model I created for him will allow him to reform his body once more, as long as that seal doesn't appear again. The old man left. This time he didn't go crazy. It took an entire day for Lu Yin to finish his breakthrough. When he opened his eyes, he saw that the curtain of rain had changed. Breaking through to the Melder realm had increased his perception of his strength, but he didn't know how much stronger he had become. He clenched his fists and felt that something was amiss. His body seemed to have changed, becoming tougher and stronger. He thought that it was just a hallucination from his breakthrough and didn't pay it much mind. He stood up and suddenly felt a formcast model in his body. He was shocked and quickly looked at the curtain of rain. Rainmaster, are you there? The Rainmaster transmitted through the curtain of rain. The formcast model in your body will allow you to reform your body once more. Go to the sand ocean to cultivate. The rain observatory won't be able to help you much in the short term. Lu Yin bowed in gratitude and thought back to when he had broken through. He remembered that Terrence's formcast model had shattered and he had failed. It seemed that the Rainmaster had saved him. Lu Yin was glad that he had entered Astral 10. Otherwise, no one would have been able to help him. In order to feel his strength after breaking through, Lu Yin immediately headed to the trial zone entrance. The ported battles were the best platform for him to test his strength. Hui Day Night, 6 wins and 92 losses. Lu Yin heard the results as soon as he arrived. Hui Day Night walked out of the teleportation stone's range with an ugly expression. Lu Yin glanced at him when he arrived. Hui Day Night had improved from 3 wins and 72 losses to 6 wins and 92 losses in a single day. Michelle stepped into the teleportation stone's range and only appeared after a while. Michelle, 13 wins and 56 losses. Lu Yin was surprised that she had improved as well. It seemed that he wasn't the only one who had improved. Everyone else had. Although Astral 10 didn't have a mentor to guide them, the Rain Observatory, the Sand Ocean, and the mysterious stargazing deck were all good places to cultivate. Lu Yin walked past Michelle and slowly stepped into the teleportation stone's range. This was his first battle after breaking through to the Melder realm, and he hoped that he wouldn't run into any space-exploring freaks. The scene in front of him changed and he appeared in a meadow. A gentle breeze blew and the fresh smell of the grass was intoxicating. A figure appeared in front of him and attacked him as soon as it appeared. A strange purple sticky substance descended like a spiderweb. This was an innate gift. Lu Yin was shocked. This was a strange innate gift. The purple substance sealed the void and smashed towards Lu Yin. He stepped forward with his right foot and disappeared with flash, appearing in front of the opposing Melder in an instant. He raised his hand and unleashed a 6-stack shockwave palm. With a bang, the Melder was smashed to pieces. Following the Melder's defeat, the purple substance that had filled the void all disappeared. Lu Yin looked at his palm in shock. It had been so easy to use the 6-stack shockwave palm. Every time he used it before, his palm would feel like it was cracking, a sign that his body couldn't bear it. But this time it was as easy as breathing and there wasn't even a trace of burden on his body. How could this be? Had breaking through to the Melder realm made his body so much stronger? Also, Flash had more than doubled his speed. Beneath the teleportation stone, Lu Yin opened his eyes in a daze. He had some understanding of the Melder realm, and the biggest change from the Sentinel realm to the Melder realm was the strength of their star energy. A Melder could crush a Sentinel and improve in other aspects as well, but it shouldn't have been this exaggerated. He felt that his body was strangely strong. Thinking about this, Lu Yin continued to enter the ported battles. Another Melder appeared in front of him. Most of the participants in the ported battles were Melders, followed by Limiters and Sentinels and Space Explorers. Welcome aboard. Stay tuned and subscribe to Han Li's Wuxia Adventures for more thrilling content. Chapter 124. Lu Yin looked at the melder in front of him and raised his hand, causing the air to tremble and ripple. He had used 6 stacks without any burden on his body, and then 7 stacks without any burden either. Lu Yin was shocked to see 8 stacks. Suddenly, the melder charged at him and swept out with a leg. His figure melded into the void and reappeared from the side, the boundless afterimages of his kick almost shattering the void. This was a powerhouse with a rather powerful leg technique. Lu Yin immediately used 9 stacks and struck out with a palm. 9 consecutive superimposed explosions rang out, causing the void to tremble as if it were about to shatter. A single palm had shattered the melder in front of Lu Yin. Lu Yin was shocked. This was the terror of 9 stacks. It far surpassed 6 stacks and was even stronger than Sirius Palm with 6 stars, even though he hadn't even used Shockwave Palm. It was no wonder why the Rainmaster had only deduced 9 stacks. Any melder who could control 9 stacks would be terrifying. Lu Yin appeared beneath the teleportation stone once more and looked at his palm, deep in thought. 9 stacks still wasn't the peak and his body could still withstand even more power. Just how terrifying had his body become? Lu Yin took a deep breath and excitedly entered the ported battles once more. The next 4 opponents were all melders and none of them could stop him. The 5th opponent was a Lemeter toad named Zhang Wuji. Lu Yin wasn't afraid in the face of a Lemeter. Instead he was excited. He wanted to know his current limits. With a bang, Zhang Wuji rushed in front of Lu Yin and pressed down with a single palm. The surging star energy caused Lu Yin to suffocate, and his right palm made Lu Yin feel a sense of danger. Lu Yin didn't hesitate to meet the 9 stacks shockwave palm head-on. Thump, thump, thump. 9 explosions rang out as the ground shattered and the 2 of them sank into the ground. Lu Yin's heart sank as his internal organs felt pressured. His opponent's palm strength had shocked him to the core, and it was absolutely terrifying. Zhang Wuji was equally shocked. He had never thought that a melder would be able to withstand 9 of his palms. In order to end this battle as quickly as possible, Lu Yin had used Astral 7's top battle technique, Astral 7's Starburst Palm. Every palm strike contained all of the star energy in his body, and it was equivalent to an all-out attack. At the same time, Lu Yin borrowed the power of his opponent's star energy to flow back into his body. It could be said that each palm strike consumed almost no star energy, but it contained the most power. 9 palms were equivalent to 9 full-strength attacks, but Lu Yin had managed to withstand them all. With a whoosh, Zhang Wuji raised his palm again. Lu Yin's heart skipped a beat as he evaded the attack with flash. A huge crater was formed where he had been standing and dust filled the air. Lu Yin took advantage of the dust to attack Zhang Wuji's back, but in the next moment, a terrifying pressure suddenly appeared. This was gravity. This person actually had an innate gift of gravity. The terrifying 100-fold gravity left Lu Yin unable to react for a moment, and Zhang Wuji's 2 palms struck out. Lu Yin's body was struck by a powerful force, and his organs were reduced to dust. Beneath the teleportation stone, Lu Yin opened his eyes with a vexed expression. He hadn't expected this person to have an innate gift of gravity. If he had known earlier, he wouldn't have gone all out against this person. However, even if he hadn't gone all out, Lu Yin felt that he might not have been a match for this person. Zhang Wuji was a Lemeter after all, and each of his palms were terrifyingly powerful. Furthermore, his star energy hadn't decreased at all. In Astral 7, Dai Ao opened his eyes, the shock still lingering in his eyes. A melder actually forced me to use my innate gift, and even lost in the end because his organs couldn't handle it. He took a total of 23 starburst palms from me, and his body wasn't injured at all. He's definitely a monster. It's a pity that I had to end the battle quickly because I was in a hurry. Otherwise, I would have really wanted to test the limits of his body. I hope we can have a good fight the next time we meet. At Astral 10's entrance, Lu Yin walked out of the teleportation stone and heard the battle report. Lu Yin 13 wins 19 losses. Not far away, Michelle, Hui Day Knight, Zhao Yilong and Lulu all stared at him in shock. 6 wins in a row. He just won 6 in a row. Michelle exclaimed, her dark red eyes widening. Lu Yin nodded. It was just luck. Hui Day Knight took a few steps forward and stared at Lu Yin. Did you only meet sentinels? Lu Yin frowned. Watch your attitude, I don't have to answer you. Speak. Hui Day Knight barked. Lu Yin's eyes turned cold as he stared at Hui Day Knight. You're asking for a beating. Hui Day Knight sneered. You must have a way to find the weak to start ported battles, right? In the distance the old man blinked. There's no way to start ported battles, only the strong win. I don't believe it. How can an Outerverse cultivator win 6 in a row? Even we can't do that. Hui Day Knight roared, clearly irritated. Michelle frowned. Lulu was unhappy. Lu Yin laughed and turned to look at the old man. Can you let us fight here? It'll end quickly. The old man nodded. Don't destroy the plants. Lu Yin's lips curled up as he looked at Hui Day Knight. Don't worry, it'll end in an instant. Hui Day Knight stared coldly at Lu Yin. You actually dared to accept my challenge. I'll show you that even if you're a melder, you're nothing in front of my Day Knight clan. Lu Yin raised a hand. Come, let me see how powerful the Day Knight clan is. Hui Day Knight's eyes widened as he sensed the disdain in Lu Yin's tone. An Outerverse native actually dared to look down on the Day Knight clan? Hui Day Knight's figure flashed and disappeared into the void. Day Knight's soul-chasing finger. A finger appeared in the void and pointed at Lu Yin. Lu Yin instantly felt as if something within his body had been torn apart. It was an indescribable feeling. If a person had a soul, it would have felt like it was being torn apart. This finger attack didn't just target his body. As expected of a battle technique from the Day Knight clan, Lu Yin's raised hand moved horizontally and grabbed the finger that had extended out of the void. He exerted a bit of force, and the sound of bones breaking rang out as Hui Day Knight was dragged out of the void. His body was forcefully pressed to the ground, half kneeling as he looked up in shock. It wasn't just him, even Michelle and the others were shocked. Although Hui Day Knight was only a sentinel, he was definitely stronger than many melders. Furthermore, the Day Knight clan's battle techniques had indescribable offensive capabilities that ordinary people couldn't withstand. Lu Yin had easily dispelled the soul-chasing finger, which was inconceivable to Michelle and the others. Lu Yin smiled at Hui Day Knight. He had also entered the Day Knight clan's inheritance stone corridor, and the clan's unique attacks weren't very effective against him, especially when his opponent was just a sentinel. I told you it'll end in an instant. Hui Day Knight's pupils shrank. Impossible, you're completely unaffected by the soul-chasing finger. But Lu Yin exerted more force with his right hand and completely broke Hui Day Knight's fingers. You don't have the right to ask me that. Hui Day Knight gritted his teeth in agony and growled. His star energy erupted as he tried to push Lu Yin away, but Lu Yin grabbed his fingers and flung him away. The enormous force behind the blow made it impossible for Hui Day Knight to dodge, and his body was flung far away. After dealing with Hui Day Knight, Lu Yin looked at Michelle. Do you want to continue the ported battles? She stared at him and muttered to herself for a moment before turning to leave. Zhao Yilong's expression changed. He hadn't paid much attention to this person before, just like the melder shits. Zhao Yilong was confident that he could defeat a melder, but now he felt that this person was as deep as the ocean. 6 consecutive victories definitely couldn't be achieved by luck. Otherwise, sentinels wouldn't be able to achieve 3 consecutive victories in a row. This person's power had to be terrifying beyond imagination. Zhao Yilong left as well, seemingly having made up his mind about something. Hui Day Knight didn't return. Lu Yin wondered if he had provoked them. It wasn't that the sentinels who entered Astral 10 couldn't break through, they just didn't want to. Now that he had become a melder, would these people also break through? That would be interesting. He and Lulu were the only ones left here, and when he saw her glowing eyes, he knew that her hands were itching for a fight. You've changed a lot recently, let's compete, Lulu said eagerly. Lu Yin shrugged. You can't fight here. No, let's compete in strength. Lulu licked her lips with a provocative look. Lu Yin's heart skipped a beat. Strength? That's fine, he wanted to know how strong he was. All right, let's do it. Lulu stretched out a fair hand. Simple, a tug of war. Let's see who moves first. Lu Yin found it interesting and reached out to grab her hand. It was so soft. Lulu's lips curled up. Let's begin. All right, let's begin. The two exerted their strength at the same time, causing a crack to appear in the ground. They didn't use star energy, but their strength alone was enough to cause the ground to collapse. I'm going to be published soon, and Windborn still needs to eat. Please support me, my promise will not change. I'll update twice a day and I'll never stop. Welcome aboard. Stay tuned and subscribe to Han Li's Wuxia Adventures for more thrilling content. Chapter 125. Lu Yin's eyes trembled. Lulu's strength was indeed great. Although her palms were soft, they were as tough as steel and she was trying to pull him along with an earth-shattering force. However, Lulu's shock far exceeded Lu Yin's. She was from the Mavis family and they were born with godly strength. She had never met anyone stronger than herself, but at this moment she felt a strength as deep as the sea from Lu Yin's palms. She was certain that Lu Yin was stronger than her, but he hadn't unleashed his full strength yet. She could feel how terrifying this person's body was through the contact of their palms. It was a kind of terror that was restrained to the extreme. When had Lu Yin become so terrifying? This kind of body wasn't something that an ordinary person could cultivate. It was more like an innate gift from ancient times. A gust of wind separated the two and the elder spoke up from a distance, "Don't destroy the plants." Lu Yin and Lulu looked down, the cracks in the ground growing deeper and deeper as the plants were uprooted. "Sorry, mentor," Lu Yin apologized. Lulu stared at Lu Yin until he felt goosebumps. "Why are you staring at me? The victor hasn't been decided yet. If you want to continue you can find another place." Lulu shook her head and pursed her lips. "Pervert, no need. You can play by yourself." She then left on her own. Lu Yin was confused. What's wrong with her? But since she's gone, there's no one here to fight over the teleportation stone with me. I'll continue and test my strength. With that in mind, Lu Yin stepped into the teleportation stone's range. The elder's eyes widened when he entered and he had a strange expression on his face. Mavis is born with great strength and a powerful body. That child actually surpassed them, but I can't tell his race. Strange. He's just an ordinary person, so how can he surpass them? Is his surname Lu? Elsewhere, Michelle was walking through the ruins of Astral 10. Aside from a few limited areas, everything else had been reduced to rubble. Michelle looked up, her eyes flashing. She muttered to herself for a while before coming to a decision. "Sorry, sister, I'll have to use my innate gift." Outside Stargazing Tower, Xiao Luo was sitting cross-legged when he suddenly received a message from Lulu. He looked at it and was surprised. There's actually such a big change. It's unexpected. I have to work hard or else I won't be able to keep up. The Rain Observatory's dark green curtain of rain stretched endlessly. Beyond the Rain Observatory was a field of broken weapons and broken walls. It could be seen that this place used to be glorious, but it had turned into ruins overnight. Some places even burned for a long time. Silver stood on high ground and surveyed the ruins. It's really all gone. Astral 10's headmaster went crazy and destroyed the entire academy. That's why Astral 10 has always been at the bottom. Even the countless battle techniques that we've collected since ancient times have all been destroyed. What a pity. There were only a dozen or so people in the massive Astral 10. No one would believe it if they told others, but that was the truth. Against Astral 10, everyone was like a drop of water in the ocean. They were insignificant and it was extremely rare for them to bump into each other. Lu Yin stayed at the trial zone entrance for half a day and then rested for the night before heading to the Sand Ocean. The Rain Master had said that the Rain Observatory wouldn't be of much help to him at the moment, and that the Sand Ocean was the only place that could increase his strength. When Lu Yin left the trial zone entrance, his results in the ported battles were 31 wins and 46 losses. He was the best out of all the new students, but no one else knew about this result. He stepped into the teleportation device and chose the Sand Ocean with a serious expression. He had originally planned to fight a few more battles, but the last one had given him a strange shock. His opponent was also a melder, but he had defeated him with a power that he had never experienced but had long since heard of: battle force. Those who loved to fight had to have integrity. Battle force originated from the core of the human body, and it could be used to attack, defend, break through limits, crush the heavens and tear apart the stars. This was a description of battle force, and someone had once said that it contained the strength and cultivation methods of battle force, but Lu Yin didn't understand. After he had lost his memories, he had been rescued by his family and stayed in the Innerverse for a period of time. He had heard of battle force many times, and some had described it as a power that could split the heavens and earth apart. Lu Yin had yearned for it back then, but for various reasons he couldn't cultivate it and had been waiting on Earth for the trial to evolve. He had fought nearly 100 ported battles, and in the last one he had encountered a battle force powerhouse. He had recognized that power at a glance, and it seemed to be very suitable for him. He couldn't wait to understand it. However, he didn't know if Astral 10 had a way to cultivate battle force, so he could only go to the Sand Ocean to try his luck. It was comparable to the Rain Observatory, so it wasn't simple. Just from the name alone, it seemed to be related to the physical body. Perhaps there was a chance that it could touch upon battle force. This was his second time coming to the Sand Ocean. The first time he had only taken a quick look before heading to the Rain Observatory. This time, however, he planned to stay here. He walked out of the teleportation device and stepped onto dry, scorching sand. He looked around and saw a boundless sea of sand. He tore off his outer clothes and felt the dry heat of the Sand Ocean. He squatted down and pinched a handful of sand. It was very hard. This wasn't normal sand, and even his body felt a bit of pain when he used a little strength. It really is a good place to train the physical body, he sighed and slowly walked into the depths of the desert. His figure gradually distorted under the scorching sun before disappearing. There were still more than 20 days until the new student competition, and everyone was preparing for it. In the darkness of space, a huge spacecraft jumped out of a wormhole and flew towards the Frostwave Weave. There were deep blue musical notes engraved on the exterior of the spacecraft. This was the insignia of the Soul Dream tribe from the Innerverse. The Soul Dream tribe was a rather famous tribe in the Innerverse. There were only females in the tribe and there were no males. They were known as a nation of females, and all of the Soul Dream tribe women were extremely beautiful. More importantly, they all had enchanting voices that could shake the heavens. If the universe was bleak and lonely, then the Soul Dream tribe added a moving note to this bleakness, giving the universe a hint of tenderness. Every member of the Soul Dream tribe was a celebrity. This was publicly acknowledged in the Innerverse. Inside the huge spacecraft, a beautiful woman with long dark blue hair that reached her waist asked, "How much longer?" Someone beside her immediately replied, "Young mistress, we'll reach Astral 10 in at most an hour." The woman smiled and lit up the sky. "I hope that Astral 10 won't disappoint me and that I'll be able to successfully awaken battle force. Young mistress, your visit to Astral 10 has attracted a lot of attention. The media has been contacting the tribe to find out why you're here so that they can release the news." The woman furrowed her beautiful brows. "The media is so annoying. I can't even have a moment of peace. Young mistress, you're the most outstanding descendant of our Soul Dream tribe, far surpassing any previous generation. You're the brightest star in the Innerverse and everyone is paying attention to your every move." The woman's head hurt, but she suddenly thought of something and smiled mischievously. "Tell them that I'm going to Astral 10 to find my sweetheart." Everyone was stunned when they heard this. Regardless of whether they were commanding the spacecraft or observing the star charts, they all stared blankly at the woman. "Young mistress, you can't say such nonsense. You'll bring trouble to Astral 10 if you do that. Those powerhouses who are pursuing you will tear Astral 10 apart," someone immediately cried out. The woman blinked and thought about it. "All right, I won't cause trouble for them. Those people might really cause trouble for Astral 10. Although they're annoying, their strength is unparalleled in the universe, and no one in Astral 10 will be able to stop them. How about this? Spread the news that I'm going to Astral 10's Sand Ocean to train. That place used to be one of the most famous cultivation holy lands." The people around her heaved a sigh of relief. "Yes, young mistress." No one dared to underestimate the influence of the Soul Dream tribe. They had countless fans in the universe and were true stars. Regardless of whether they were ordinary people, cultivators, or the top cultivation geniuses of the various large powers, there was a large group of people who were infatuated with the Soul Dream tribe. This was especially true for the young mistress of the Soul Dream tribe. Even the weakest of her suitors were the strongest of the younger generation. If those people really went to Astral 10 to cause trouble, Astral 10 would definitely be crushed without the help of the mentors. However, no matter where one went, the power of the media was pervasive. As long as she said something, it would spread. The woman didn't know what her joke would do to Astral 10. Elsewhere, in the forest of Astral 5, Heart Phoenix walked out from beneath a teleportation stone and clenched his fists. "Congratulations, Junior Heart, for achieving 3 consecutive Sentinel victories. Congratulations, young Master Heart. Congratulations." Heart Phoenix snorted. Too late, the mission has already been completed by someone else. The people around him felt awkward. Oh right, young Master Heart, the Soul Dream Tribe's young mistress Xiyu that you asked me to keep an eye on recently released her itinerary. She went to Astral 10's Sand Ocean, someone suddenly said. It's about to be published and Windborn still needs to eat. Please continue to support me, my promise will not change. I'll update twice a day and never stop. Welcome aboard. Stay tuned and subscribe to Han Li's Wuxia Adventures for more thrilling content. Chapter 126. Heart Phoenix was about to leave, but his eyes lit up when he heard this. Astral 10? I remember that the person who completed the Sentinel mission was from Astral 10. Someone beside him immediately said, Don't worry, young Master Heart. That person must have been lucky to meet new Sentinels. You, on the other hand, defeated a Melder. Heart frowned. There's no such thing as luck in ported battles. Arrange for it immediately, I want to go to Astral 10. The people around him were shocked. Young Master, Astral 5 has rules that prohibit you from leaving as you wish. Heart scoffed. Tell the Academy that my brother sent me to Astral 10. He's always wanted me to marry Xiyu and gain the support of the Soul Dream Tribe. This is a good opportunity. Yes, young Master. In Astral 8, a pair of eyes opened beneath the scorching magma. Craner, go to Astral 10 and bring Xiyu back. She shouldn't have gone there. Tell her that if she wants the Sand Ocean, she can play with it when the Blaze Realm takes over Astral 10. We can even give it to her. A Melder answered from outside the magma, his body surging with startling star energy. He was Craner, second on the Blaze Realm's rankings, second only to the top of the rankings. He was far stronger than Asheram, who had attacked Astral 10's entrance exam. After all, Asheram was only fifth and couldn't be compared to him. In the endless weaves, a low voice echoed in Astral 9. Bonnie, go to Astral 10 and see if there are any geniuses who can threaten us. A young man opened his eyes, the black flames in his pupils extinguishing. Yes, mentor. In Astral 10 the two brothers Big Pao and Little Pao were together. Bro, tell me honestly, how do I treat you? Little Pao thought for a moment before answering seriously. Not much. Big Pao's mouth twitched. I'll treat you well in the future. Bro, cut the crap. You're just eyeing Xiyu's latest single and want me to lend you money to buy it, Little Pao said warily. Big Pao laughed dryly. Bro, you know that I don't have many pursuits other than Xiyu's songs. Come on, lend me some money. Little Pao immediately refused. No, I also like Xiyu's songs. Want to buy them too? Then lend them to me. To listen. No, Xiyu's songs are like my wives. You're too stingy, it's not like you'll die. I'll feel terrible. I won't be able to get over it. Lend it to me. I promise I won't fight you for the position of Area Master. No, there's no room for negotiation. At this moment, a notification appeared on their gadgets. They looked at it at the same time and their expressions changed in disbelief. Xiyu is coming to Astral 10? Are you serious? Big Pao cheered excitedly. Xiyu is coming. Little Pao was also excited and kept mumbling to himself. Xiyu is coming, I want an autograph, I want a photo, I want... Suddenly he roared, You two welcome the guests immediately. Big Pao and Little Pao quickly replied, Yes, Sandmaster. Half an hour later, the Soul Dream Tribe's spacecraft landed at Astral 10's space station. Big Pao and Little Pao excitedly stared at the cabin. They were all Xiyu's fanatical fans and had never thought that they would one day see her in person. As the cabin door opened, a group of female Soul Dream Tribe soldiers walked out, followed by a few arrogant-looking youths. They were from Astral 8 and had been ordered to protect Xiyu from being harassed. They had also been ordered to get rid of random people for their master, such as the two perverts in front of them with gleaming eyes. They were obviously up to no good. Who are you? Are there no decent students from Astral 10 to welcome young Master Xiyu? One of the youths said unhappily. Big Pao stepped forward and stared at the cabin door. He didn't even look at the youths and said casually, We're the most decent. Where's Junior Xiyu? Why isn't she out yet? The youth frowned and blocked Big Pao. Watch your tone. You're just expelled students. You don't have the right to call young Master Xiyu your junior. Big Pao pouted, ignoring him. The youth was furious. At that moment, a beautiful girl with long blue hair walked out. Her eyes were as bright as the stars, mesmerizing. She was Shiyu, the young master of the Soul Dream tribe. As long as it's not banned, Astral 10 will still be Astral 10. It's only right for you to call me your junior. Big Pao and Little Pao stared blankly at Shiyu. He was too mesmerizing. Her nebula-like face and her gentle voice made them drunk. Big Pao coughed and said solemnly, "Hello, Junior Shiyu. I'm Big Pao, but you can call me Brother Pao." Little Pao also stepped forward. "Junior Shiyu, I'm Little Pao, but you can call me Brother Little Pao." Everyone was stunned. Brother Pao? What a vulgar name. Were these two bastards flirting with young Master Shiyu? Shiyu was also stunned for a moment and became angry, but when she saw the excitement in their eyes, she suppressed her anger and forced a smile, almost melting Big Pao and Little Pao's hearts. "Shiyu will just call you Senior Big Pao and Senior Little Pao." It's fine. "Junior Shiyu, can you take a picture with me and make a video? It would be perfect if we could eat together." Before Big Pao could finish speaking, he was cut off by a middle-aged woman. She was quite pretty and looked to be in her 40s. She stood in front of Shiyu and glared at Big Pao and Little Pao. "Don't disturb the young mistress. She's here for the Sand Ocean and doesn't have time for anything else." The two were disappointed. Shiyu looked outside the space station. It was rumored that Astral 10 had been expelled to the Outerverse and that all the original students had left. There were only 2 people left, but none of the academies had taken a liking to them. They were probably the 2 people in front of her. This was Astral 10, the academy that was about to be banned. If not for the fact that the Blaze Realm was one of the powers that would replace Astral 10, she wouldn't have come at this time. Once the Blaze Realm took over, she would have to face someone which would be troublesome. "Seniors, how many students are there in Astral 10? Shiyu asked curiously. Little Pao replied, 14. Behind Shiyu, a young man sneered, "The great Astral 10 has fallen to such a state. No wonder there are rumors that it's about to be banned. You're the only ones left. How embarrassing." Little Pao raised an eyebrow and glanced at the young man. "Our motto is quality, not quantity. We're not a shelter that takes just anyone." "What did you say?" The young man was furious. Shiyu raised her hand and glared at the young man. "Don't be rude to Astral 10. If you do that again, you can go back." The young man lowered his head. "Yes, young Master Shiyu." Shiyu turned to Big Pao and Little Pao. "Seniors, please take me to greet the mentors of Astral 10. Big Pao smiled. "No need, we don't have that many rules. The Sand Master said that you can go directly to the Sand Ocean to cultivate." Shiyu's eyes lit up and she bowed slightly. "Thank you, please lead the way." The two immediately led the way, but the Soul Dream tribe's entourage was stopped. Not everyone could enter the Astral Combat Academy. Shiyu did not refuse and only brought the few students from Astral 8 in. They used the teleportation device and arrived at the Sand Ocean. Coincidentally, they saw a man and a woman standing in the desert. The woman was about to enter when the man came out. The girl was Michelle and the man was Schutz. He had come to the Sand Ocean immediately after the ported battles and had stayed there until now. He had no idea what had happened in the outside world during this time. Now that he felt that he had made some progress, he wanted to participate in another ported battle. The appearance of Shiyu's group attracted Michelle and Schutz's attention. They had not expected to meet other people here. Shiyu looked past Schutz and saw Michelle. Her eyes flashed and she smiled. "I didn't expect to see the Red Lotus Witch here. Nice to meet you." Michelle stared at Shiyu and thought of something. "I didn't expect to see the famous young master of the Soul Dream tribe, Shiyu, here either. I heard that you joined the 10 Arbiters Council. It's good to have a strong sister." Shiyu giggled with a hint of dissatisfaction. Michelle was indifferent. "You don't like it?" Shiyu smiled. "What are you talking about, Sister Michelle? So what if I don't like it? No one can go against the 10 Arbiters Council's decision." Michelle did not speak and only looked at Shiyu. Big Pao and Little Pao looked at each other. There must be a story between the two. It should be the first time they met, but they were opposing each other. "Young Mistress Shiyu, do you want me to teach them a lesson for you?" Shiyu snorted. "Teach her a lesson? Look carefully, she's the Red Lotus Witch." Red Lotus Witch? They were confused, but one of them suddenly reacted. His expression changed and he looked at Michelle with fear, but he did not say anything else. Schutz walked straight to the teleportation device. "Please make way." Shiyu glanced at him. He was very ordinary and not worth her attention. Michelle was the only one worth paying attention to in Astral 10. She stepped out of the device, but one of the youths behind her purposely blocked Schutz's path and looked at him arrogantly. He was the one who had been scolded by Shiyu and was very unhappy with Astral 10. He wanted to find a chance to humiliate this academy that should have been closed down long ago. At the same time, he was also from the Blaze realm. Big Pao and Little Pao walked out of the teleportation device and saw Schutz being provoked, but they did not say anything. The path of cultivation had never been smooth, and if one did not even dare to fight, then there was no point in cultivating. This was Astral 10, and no matter what, one could not back down in the face of provocation. Shiyu looked back but did not care. Her gaze was still fixed on Michelle. This woman had stolen her spot in the 10 Arbiters Council just because she had a good sister. Schutz looked at the young man with a gloomy expression. Move. The young man looked at him with disdain and took 2 steps forward. Consider yourself lucky, you ants. You actually managed to get past the obstacles and enter Astral 10. I don't know who stopped you, but remember, I'm from the Blaze realm. Schutz's gaze turned cold. The Blaze realm was one of the 3 powers that had attacked Astral 10 during the entrance exam. They were also the power that hated Astral 10 the most, and they wanted to replace Astral 10 and control the key to the 3 realms and 6 Daos. My new book is officially on the shelves. Thank you for your support. The Windchaser Association will always maintain efficiency and quality, and we promise to never stop updating. Thank you for your support. Please subscribe. Please donate. Thank you for your support. Welcome aboard. Stay tuned and subscribe to Han Li's Wuxia Adventures for more thrilling content. Chapter 127. So what? Schutz's tone was deep. The youth's eyes flashed coldly and he charged at Schutz with his left shoulder. Schutz clenched his fists, but he didn't take a single step back. The two collided inside the teleportation device with a dull thud. Schutz took 2 steps back while the youth stepped forward with a disdainful smile. Schutz also stepped forward and pressed a hand on the youth's shoulder. Star energy erupted from the youth's body and turned into flames, causing the air to heat up. Schutz gripped the hilt of his sword with his right hand, and the blood-red blade flickered with a cold light. At that moment, Little Pao walked over and pushed Schutz's hand aside before pressing his hand on the youth's shoulder, forcefully suppressing the youth's star energy. Sorry, you can't fight here. If you break the teleportation device, we'll have no choice but to fly out. The youth's eyes widened and his star energy surged as he tried to erupt again, but he couldn't break free from Little Pao's suppression. He was shocked. Didn't they say that Astral 10's remaining students were trash? This person definitely had the strength of a Lemmeter. Just his realm alone wasn't trash. Inexplicably, everyone's hearts trembled and they turned to look. In the distance, Shiyu and Michelle had changed. Shiyu's dark blue hair fluttered as she opened her mouth and sang a sweet song that reverberated in the air above the sand ocean. She danced in the air, and the hot air seemed to transform into a peerless beauty dancing gracefully. Her gentle voice cleansed everyone's hearts. Her voice was beautiful, but Big Pao and Little Pao's expressions were abnormally solemn. This was Shiyu's battle technique, Astral 8's psychedelic song. Among the 10 academies, Astral 8 had the most musical battle techniques, which was why the Soul Dream tribe had chosen Astral 8. These musical battle techniques were most suitable for the Soul Dream tribe, and they could unleash unimaginable power. Shiyu won 30 consecutive ported battles. Michelle is far from her. Bro, stop her, Little Pao said solemnly. Big Pao shook his head. He was no longer as playful as before and his gaze was extremely serious. Keep watching. If it doesn't work out, the Sandmaster will step in. Shiyu's followers were pleased with themselves. She wasn't just a singer, she was also the young matriarch of the Soul Dream tribe, a powerful tribe in the Innerverse. If one wasn't strong enough, they wouldn't be able to become the young matriarch. She was one of the strongest melders in Astral 8. Schutz's eyes were filled with shock as he listened to her beautiful singing voice, which caused the climate of the desert sea to change. He could feel a boundless sense of danger from her voice. This woman was far stronger than him, and even the people who followed her were stronger than him. For example, that man from the Blaze realm had been able to materialize his star energy, which was a realm that Schutz could not reach for the time being. This was the power of an Astral Combat Academy student, and any one of them could shake the entire outerverse. Michelle frowned. The music in her ears caused her organs to vibrate and her head to feel heavy. The intense dizziness made it hard for her to even stand properly. What she saw before her eyes was no longer the sand ocean, but scenes of the past that had been engraved in her bones. Unable to bear it, she gritted her teeth and her red eyes flashed. Under her feet red lotuses bloomed. That wisp of red was shocking. It adorned the boundless sea of sand, causing the psychedelic song to instantly shatter. Everyone was shocked. Was this Michelle's innate gift? Xiao's eyes flashed. Red lotuses were indeed this woman's innate gift. Just like her sister Mira, they both had the innate gift of red lotuses. It was this innate gift that had allowed her to stand out and join the 10 Arbiters' Council as a melder. She wanted to destroy this innate gift. The song changed and it was no longer the psychedelic song. Instead it exploded in the void. This was the Triple Sonic Blast, a song that Xiu had mastered. She wanted to use this song to destroy the red lotuses. Michelle opened her eyes and her red eyes flashed with a demonic light. When the red lotuses bloomed, no one could stop her. Not this woman, not even a melder from the other academies. At this moment she was invincible. At that moment, a loud shout shook the clouds and sent sand flying. So noisy. Who dares disturb my rest? She used triple sonic blast and Michelle's red lotuses were shattered by a strong gust of wind. Both of them retreated at the same time, their faces pale. They bowed towards the direction of the sand ocean. Sorry, mentor. Sorry, mentor. Big Pao quickly stepped forward and laughed dryly. Junior Michelle, Junior Xiu, the Sand Master has a bad temper. You should stop. The two looked at each other. Sister Michelle is indeed Senior Myra's younger sister. Her talent is amazing. Xiu smiled. Michelle glanced at her coldly and walked towards the east of the sand ocean. Xiu didn't mind and smiled at Big Pao before telling the others to leave the sand ocean. I'm going to cultivate in the sand ocean for a few days. I'll let you guys know when I'm done. Miss Xiu, isn't it too dangerous? The youth from the Blaze realm asked worriedly. Xiu frowned. This is the sand ocean. With the Sand Master here, no one can hurt me. Don't be so petty. Let's go. Let's just wait at the entrance. Xiu didn't say anything else. She smiled at Big Pao and Little Pao again and walked towards the west of the sand ocean. Schutz retracted his gaze and slowly suppressed the shock in his heart. That was a battle between the top students of the Astral Combat Academy, and he was still far from it. Little Pao patted him on the shoulder. Let's go. Don't think too much. You're much stronger than when you first entered the academy, so your future won't be bad. Schutz nodded and stepped into the teleportation device. Big Pao immediately ran over and the three of them left the sand ocean. In the end, only Xiu's group remained at the entrance of the sand ocean. The sand ocean was vast and boundless. Xiu didn't fly and instead walked step by step towards its depths. However, with her speed she had already covered a large distance in just an hour. Feeling the roughness and hardness of the sand, Xiu's eyes wandered. I hope I can comprehend battle force here and truly stand at the top of Astral 8. I might even become an area master. She then recalled the experiences of a student from Astral 8 who had entered the sand ocean. Should I bury myself? The deeper the better. With a boom, Xiu struck the sand with her palm, but she found that it was difficult to penetrate the loose sand. Even with her full strength, she only managed to create a 1-meter deep hole. The sand seemed to be resistant to the strong. Helpless, Xiu stood in the sand and slowly sank down. The deeper she sank, the more pain she felt from the friction between her body and the sand. This sand was very helpful in tempering the body, but the pain was proportional to the gains. Xiu was already prepared for this and gritted her teeth. When she was completely buried in the sand, an earth-shattering pressure assaulted her. It didn't just affect her body but also her spirit. It was as if she was being suppressed under a mountain, and her entire body was being suppressed and suffocated. However, this pressure was similar to some of the training grounds in Astral 8, and it wasn't enough for her to comprehend battle force. Warriors had integrity, and if they wanted to obtain battle force, they had to endure inhuman pressure. All of the 10 academies had such places, but there were too many people in those places. Only Astral 10's Sand Ocean didn't have many people, and it was also a legendary holy land for training battle force. He had to succeed and go deeper. 5 meters, 10 meters, 15 meters. When Xiyu was 20 meters below the surface, she felt a little dizzy and blood vessels appeared on her originally sparkling skin. This distance was already the limit for both her body and spirit, but it still wasn't enough. Xiyu gritted her teeth and continued her descent. Suddenly she stepped on something strange. It was soft, and when she looked down she saw a pair of eyes staring blankly at her breasts. Lu Yin was sleeping. That's right, sleeping. Ever since he'd entered the sand ocean, he'd discovered that the surface of the desert wasn't of much use to him. He'd looked at the information Big Pao had sent him about the sand ocean and decided to bury himself to train. The deeper he went, the stronger the pressure. Sure enough, it was effective. Lu Yin actually fell asleep while enduring the pressure of the sand ocean. With his body's strength, he wouldn't be injured even if he was buried 20 meters below the surface, but he didn't care about the pain. Just as he was sleeping, his calf was stepped on by something. He opened his eyes and saw an imposing figure right in front of him. This was a woman's chest, right? It should be. He stared at it in a daze. A delicate fragrance wafted into his nose, intoxicating him. He subconsciously took a deep breath and raised his head, meeting a pair of lifeless eyes. Pervert! Shiyu's face paled as she roared and slammed her palm down. Lu Yin dodged to the side. Don't shout. Xiyu raised her leg and kneed him in the face, but he blocked it with his hand and grabbed onto her snow-white thigh. Woman, I was here first. Xiyu felt the warmth of his hand on her thigh and raged. Let me go, pervert. Lu Yin quickly let go and retreated. Don't call me pervert, I was here first and you stepped on me. Xiyu trembled with rage. She was the junior matriarch of the Soul Dream tribe, and she had never been so close to a man before. When she thought about how her chest was so close to this person and how Shiyu's blood rushed to her head. I'll kill you. She opened her mouth and a strange sound rang out from all directions. This was the triple sonic boom, but she hadn't used it against Michelle. Now it was all aimed at Lu Yin. Lu Yin's expression changed. This woman was quite strong. He instinctively activated his cosmic art to weaken the sonic boom within its range, but when he looked up he saw that Xiyu wasn't done yet. Enraged, he reached out to grab Xiyu. Pervert, you're courting death. Xiyu was beyond furious and wanted nothing more than to destroy this man. You're courting death, she shouted as she breathed out, her delicate lips singing a sweet song. Lu Yin's hand stopped 10 centimeters away from Xiyu, the song turning into a cosmic tide that tried to drown him. Xiyu had never used her most powerful musical battle technique before, the Dark Universe Song of Dawn, causing the entire desert to boil. In the depths of the desert, the Sand Master was shocked. What a powerful musical battle technique, as expected of the most outstanding descendant of the Soul Dream tribe. She's one of the strongest youths in the Innerverse, qualified to enter the top 100 rankings. Lu Yin's hand couldn't move an inch forward and a drop of blood flowed from his ear. The song seemed to explode in his brain, trying to blow him up. Welcome aboard. Stay tuned and subscribe to Han Li's Wuxia Adventures for more thrilling content. Chapter 128. Shut up. Lu Yin growled, the 9 stacks in his palm breaking through the song's star energy and covering her mouth. The song disappeared in an instant. Xiyu glared at him, the fury in her eyes almost melting him. Lu Yin exhaled and stared at her in shock. She was no ordinary student. I'll say this one last time. I came first and you came later. You even stepped on me. Xiyu grabbed his arm and tried to pry it away, but even Lulu lost to him in terms of strength. Do you understand what I'm saying? I won't go easy on you if you keep acting like this, Lu Yin threatened and slowly let go. Xiyu glared at him, suddenly grabbing his hand and biting down viciously. Lu Yin felt the pain and quickly pulled back. Are you a dog? Xiyu threw a punch at him. She had never suffered such a loss in her life. Not only had she been taken advantage of, she couldn't even beat him. What a bully. Lu Yin grabbed Xiyu's fist and pulled her into his embrace, his heart fluttering at the feel of her soft body. He wanted to say something, but he didn't realize that the two of them had already descended a bit. The sand ocean was divided into 7 layers, the first 30 meters thick. The two of them had just reached the 30-meter mark, and the sudden movement caused them to fall down to the second layer. There was 1,000 meters between the first and second layers, and the moment Lu Yin and Xiyu fell into the second layer, A boundless pressure assaulted them. Xiu couldn't withstand it and fainted. Lu Yin's mind went blank, but fortunately he could withstand it and they crashed into the second layer with a thump. On the first layer the Sand Master was surprised. She actually fell down? Astral 8's bell was grabbed by a brat from Astral 10. If the old guys from Astral 8 knew about this, they'd go crazy. Interesting, huh? The dark desert was silent, and Lu Yin rubbed his head as he felt the terrifying pressure all around him. Xiu was unconscious in his arms. He smiled wryly. What was going on? He didn't know who this woman was, but she had somehow ended up here. Big Pao's introduction hadn't mentioned that there was another layer to the sand ocean. Lu Yin's eyes flickered as he felt the pressure all around him. Suddenly, there was a whistling sound in the distance that sounded like a gust of wind. How could there be wind in this underground world? Lu Yin turned around and narrowed his eyes, immediately pulling Xiu into his arms with his back to the wind. The next moment the wind tore through the void and tore his clothes to shreds. Gusts of wind slashed his body like sharp blades, leaving bloody wounds that splattered across the desert as intense pain engulfed his nerves. This wasn't wind, it was clearly a blade, a gust of wind formed by blades. The gale quickly passed, leaving him gasping for breath. He hurriedly took out some medicine from his cosmic ring and applied it to his back. Fortunately, his body was strong enough that he'd only suffered superficial wounds. If it had been the woman in his arms, she would have been dismembered. Suddenly, another gust of wind blew over and Lu Yin's scalp went numb. This was too frequent and he blocked in front of Xiu without a second thought. This time, the wind didn't hurt him physically, but an indescribably terrifying spiritual pressure caused him to spit out a mouthful of blood and almost pass out. It was like being locked in a dark room for a long time, and it made him feel endless loneliness and pressure. Sometimes, pressure didn't need to be brought about by the outside world. It was even more terrifying when you put it on yourself. Lu Yin felt the pressure that he was putting on himself, the kind of despair that could break a person down. If not for his strong will, he would have already fainted. The wind came quickly and left just as quickly. Lu Yin's face went pale as he looked up, wanting to leave this place as soon as possible. But how could he leave? He tried flying, but a gust of wind tore his body apart as soon as he took off, forcing him to land quickly. He tried a few more times, but it was the same. His head hurt, he couldn't leave. At the same time, somewhere in Astral 10, Big Pao slapped his forehead. I forgot to tell Xiu not to go too deep, it'll be troublesome if she falls into the second layer. Little Pao waved his hand. Don't worry, she can just ask the Sand Master for help if she really can't get out. That's right, Xiu is so smart, how could she not think of asking for help? Let's go listen to some music. Let's go. After an unknown amount of time, Xiu's eyelids twitched and she slowly opened her eyes. Everything was dark and she could vaguely see a sandstorm sweeping past. Her body seemed to be wrapped around by something and she turned around to see a man. Shocked, she subconsciously pushed him away and fell into the sand. At that moment, a gust of wind blew past and Lu Yin quickly grabbed her. Careful. Xiu glared at him. Let go of me, pervert. The wind brushed past Lu Yin's arm, causing Xiu's expression to change drastically. Her clothes were torn to shreds and several bloody gashes appeared on her fair skin. Lu Yin quickly grabbed her and placed himself in front of her. Xiu spat out a mouthful of blood as she endured the pain in her body. She took out some clothes from her cosmic ring and put them on. She looked in front of her in disbelief. She couldn't withstand the gale that had just passed by, and if it hadn't been for the man blocking it, she would have suffered far more injuries. It's coming again, this time it's mental pressure. Be careful, don't die. Lu Yin's voice rang out beside her ear. Xiu was confused, but the next moment, a gust of wind blew past her and she felt like her brain had been hit by something, almost fainting. Lu Yin wasn't feeling any better either, his hands clenched into fists as he stared at her with a resolute gaze. A strange current appeared around his body, but it was so weak that neither of them noticed it. The wind blew past quickly and Xiu spat out another mouthful of blood, her face pale. It's over, Lu Yin sighed looking at her. This girl was really pitiful, having to endure mental pressure as soon as she woke up. Xiu panted heavily, her body drenched in sweat as she subconsciously distanced herself from Lu Yin. She scanned her surroundings before finally looking at him. Who are you? Astral 10 student Lu Yin. Astral 10 student. Xiu was shocked. Only then did she react. This person had defeated her in the desert. She had used the Dark Universe Song of Pilgrimage, but it had still been defeated. How could there be such a student in Astral 10? He was definitely stronger than Michelle. Lu Yin sized her up, seeing her clearly despite the dim lighting. She was a beautiful woman, and her current sorry state only added to her charm. Who are you? None of your business, she replied coldly. Rude. Lu Yin pursed his lips. Pervert. She was furious. Don't talk nonsense. How many times have I told you that I came here first? Shiyu opened her mouth but no words came out. He could only snort. After a while Shiyu looked around. Where are we? I don't know, Lu Yin answered casually. Shiyu glared at him. You're from Astral 10, don't you know? Lu Yin rolled his eyes. I'm a new student, I don't know as much as you do. You're a new student? Shiyu was shocked. Don't I look like one? Lu Yin retorted. Shiyu's eyes twinkled. She had assumed that this person was a senior from Astral 10 who had been left behind like Big Pow and Little Pow. It made sense for him to have such strength, but it turned out that he was just a new student. He suddenly thought of something. Lu Yin. Right, the person who completed the Sentinel mission. Why are you staring at me? Lu Yin asked warily. Shiyu retracted her gaze and looked up. We're underground. Lu Yin didn't answer. He was looking at the time on his gadget. It had been 7 hours since they had fallen, and there was a gust of wind every 10 minutes on average. One targeted the body, the other targeted the mind, and there were still a few minutes before the next gust arrived. Beside him, Shiyu's eyes twinkled. She was just about to call for the Sandmaster's help when she suddenly remembered the legend of the Sand Ocean. This was one of the holy lands for battle force training. If she had only felt the pressure from before, she would not have been able to force out battle force. It was just like any other training ground, but this place was different. She could feel the constant pressure and strong winds. Perhaps this was the true Sand Ocean. If she wanted to comprehend battle force, this was the best place to train. The only problem was the pervert beside her. Shiyu glanced over and happened to meet Lu Yin's gaze. She snorted and turned away, her face pale and ugly. Pervert. Lu Yin was speechless. He was the victim. Although he had taken advantage of her, he didn't care about it. This woman was crazy. Stay away from me, Shiyu said coldly. Lu Yin raised a brow. Are you sure? Shiyu was furious. Just as she was about to say something, she suddenly remembered the gust of wind. If it wasn't for this pervert helping her, she would have been seriously injured. But rather than beg for his help, she would rather die. Shiyu was very conflicted. She had never encountered such a thing in her life. Looking up, she saw the gray sand churning in the sky and considered whether or not to call for the Sandmaster's help. Suddenly there was a whistling sound. Lu Yin's expression changed. The gust is coming, are you going to bear it alone? Shiyu gritted her teeth and moved closer to Lu Yin, but he laughed and blocked her. The next moment a gust of wind blew past and left a few bloody wounds on his back. Shiyu was blocked by him, but her arms and calves were hit and covered in fine wounds. Her frail body trembled, making for a pitiful sight. Lu Yin pursed his lips and pulled her into his embrace. Shiyu's eyes widened in anger. Let go of me, pervert. Lu Yin was annoyed. Don't call me pervert. I have a name, Lu Yin. You can call me Seventh Bro. Shiyu was furious and spat out another mouthful of blood. She swatted at Lu Yin, but the gust of wind blew past and Lu Yin moved out of the way. Shiyu's attack missed and she lost her footing. Another whistling sound was heard, and Lu Yin knew that things weren't looking good. As expected, Shiyu fainted as soon as the wind blew past. Lu Yin's face paled as he endured the endless pressure. The transparent gas around his body became more obvious, and he panted heavily as the wind blew past. He sat down casually on the ground. This really wasn't a place for humans. He glanced at the unconscious Shiyu. He was asking for trouble. Another 5 hours passed and Shiyu opened her eyes for the second time. Rubbing her forehead, she suddenly remembered something and quickly checked herself. She relaxed when she saw that her clothes were still there. Hey woman, what's the meaning of this? Do you really think I'm a pervert? Even if I was, I wouldn't be interested in a washboard like you, Lu Yin said unhappily. Welcome aboard. Stay tuned and subscribe to Han Li's Wuxia Adventures for more thrilling content. Chapter 129. Xiu glared at him. Pervert. What washboard? It's huge. What am I thinking? Xiu turned her head away, fuming inside. Lu Yin felt like he'd gone too far, but he didn't care about her anyway. She was nothing compared to Bai Shui in terms of looks, Michelle in terms of temperament, Mira in terms of seduction, and Coco in terms of purity. Where did she get her confidence from? Her voice was good, but this was his first time encountering a musical battle technique. Xiu looked at her gadget. It must have been crushed when she fell. She looked up, wanting to distance herself from this pervert, but without him she wouldn't be able to withstand the wind. Damn it, the young matriarch of the Soul Dream tribe actually had to rely on someone else. She looked at Lu Yin. When will the next gale arrive? 1 minute, he answered casually. Xiu frowned. I'm not joking. I'm not joking either, he repeated. Xiu was furious, but she took out a ring from her cosmic ring and turned it into a set of melder armor. Lu Yin pondered, would external help be useful here? But before he could think further, a gale blew past. Xiu didn't expect him to help her, thinking that her melder armor would be enough to hold her off. However, reality left her in despair as a gust of wind blew past, tearing her ring armor and her clothes apart to reveal her fair skin. He immediately pulled her into his arms again, shielding her from the wind. Don't look down, she shouted. Then you carry it yourself. Oh. Why? I can give you a reward. His eyes lit up when he heard the word reward, and he hugged her even tighter, almost breaking her neck. Xiu changed into her new clothes as soon as the wind blew past and stared at Lu Yin, only relaxing when she saw that he wasn't looking at her. Are you done? He asked. Xiu grunted. Lu Yin smiled. Get ready, the gale is coming again. Xiu's gaze was resolute, and her pale face stared straight into the depths of the dark desert. A gust of wind blew past her, and the terrifying spiritual pressure almost caused her to collapse. Fortunately, she managed to pull through. Her eyes narrowed as she looked at Lu Yin. Battle force? The two of them had been in this place for 12 hours and had been ravaged by 144 gusts of wind. Lu Yin had been awake the entire time, which meant that he had completely withstood them all. That was why he was able to form traces of battle force that could be seen with the naked eye. Battle chi. Lu Yin was puzzled and followed Xiu's gaze to his own body. His expression changed as he realized that there were threads of gas around his body, moving according to his will and slowly covering his entire body. Was this battle force? Lu Yin had never thought that he would be able to cultivate battle force by accident. This was battle force, the ultimate power of the Innerverse. Although he had hoped to use the Sand Ocean to cultivate battle force, he hadn't expected it to happen so quickly. Xiu was shocked. Battle force was a high-end combat power, and even in the Innerverse there weren't many who could use it. There were less than 10 known battle force experts in Astral 8, and according to the universe's knowledge, battle force was a high-end power that was on par with innate gifts, but this pervert had actually mastered it. Bang Lu Yin slammed his palm into the sand, his eyes gleaming with excitement as a wisp of air circled around his palm. The appearance of battle force gave Lu Yin a feeling that everything was under his control. In the past, if he used 80% of his strength in each of his palms and reserved 20% for recovery, then with the addition of battle force, he would be able to use 120% of his strength and still reserve 20% for recovery. Not only did battle force increase his defense, it also increased his attack power. Furthermore, it was extremely destructive and penetrative. So this is battle force. Good stuff, Lu Yin exclaimed excitedly. Xiu couldn't believe it, but there was also a trace of shame and anger. Something she couldn't do had been accomplished by this pervert. Do you know battle force? Lu Yin asked with a curious gaze. Xiu snorted and turned away, not wanting to look at that hateful face. Lu Yin was confused. What now? This woman was crazy. On the surface of the desert, the Sand Master was shocked. Only 12 hours? Guan Yu was right. This kid's sealed body has extraordinary innate gifts, so he should be from a powerful clan. Is it the Innerverse? Or is it that place? At the trial zone entrance, Schutz walked out of the teleportation stone's range with an ugly expression. Although he had improved recently, his results hadn't improved much compared to the powerhouses he had faced in the ported battles. He had even been defeated by a sentinel. Thinking of the sentinel realm, Schutz thought of Lu Yin, who had entered the academy with him, and wondered how he was doing. Senior Big Pao, who has the best results in the ported battles? Schütz asked. Big Pao thought for a moment. Probably Lu Yin. Schütz was shocked. Lu Yin? Isn't he a sentinel? Big Pao smiled. He broke through, but his results were the best when he was a sentinel. He had 3 consecutive victories and now he has 6 in a row. He has a total of 31 wins and 46 losses. Schütz was stunned. How was that possible? His record was 4 wins and 76 losses, a win rate of almost 20-1. Compared to Lu Yin's, the difference was like heaven and earth. What had happened to make Lu Yin's win rate so high? Or was Lu Yin's power really that terrifying? Those who had never experienced a ported battle would never be able to imagine the cruelty of it. Everyone who had encountered such freakish powerhouses were the top experts of the Innerverse younger generation. Schütz was already considered very strong in the Outerverse, but he was nothing compared to those people. Now Lu Yin had unknowingly surpassed him, which made him feel very conflicted. Beneath the sand ocean, Xiyu hid behind Lu Yin in shame. Her body couldn't withstand the wind, so she could only do so. Don't forget the reward we agreed on, Lu Yin spoke up, angering her. Here you go. Lu Yin was pleasantly surprised. He only had 10,000 star crystals from completing the Sentinel mission. Compared to the cost of rolling 6 pips, 10,000 was just a starting point. He needed to earn more, and this woman was obviously rich. Xiyu gave him a Mavis bank card. There are 2,000 star crystals inside. Lu Yin was delighted. Thank you, I didn't know you were so generous. Protect me, Xiyu said disdainfully. But before she could finish, another gust of wind hit her and she choked on her words. Lu Yin was already used to it and covered himself with battle force, greatly reducing the pressure. The wind passed quickly, leaving Xiyu gasping for breath. She looked at Lu Yin and saw that he was completely fine. Protect me while I comprehend battle force, and I'll pay you another 20,000 star crystals when it's over. Lu Yin was shocked. 20,000? You're really rich, aren't you? Xiyu snorted and didn't answer. Did she need money from her family? She was the brightest star in the Innerverse, and any one of her albums could be sold for a sky-high price. She had so much money that she didn't even know how much she had. She even had a Mavis Bank amethyst card. However, there was no need to tell this country bumpkin, lest he take advantage of her. Do you agree or not? Xiyu asked coldly. Lu Yin considered it for a moment, his eyes flashing. Xiyu frowned. 30,000. Deal. Lu Yin agreed decisively. Even if he used his dye to break down abandoned machines and worked for 2 days without rest, he'd only gotten a little over 3,000. Although he didn't know how long it would take, it was much easier than breaking down machines. All he had to do was help her resist the wind, and with battle force, it wouldn't affect him at all. Xiyu couldn't be bothered to waste time with Lu Yin after the deal was done and had him turn around to be a wall while she sat down to experience the pressure from all directions. With Lu Yin's protection, the physical wind was no longer a threat to Xiyu. She only had to endure the mental pressure. Time passed quickly and another 20 hours passed. Lu Yin's battle force had increased by a sliver during this time, but Xiyu still showed no signs of comprehending battle force. Why haven't you comprehended it yet? That's too slow, Lu Yin urged impatiently. Xiyu gritted her teeth in anger. Do you think battle force is that easy to comprehend? Everyone in the Innerverse is a battle force master. How am I so fast? Lu Yin glanced at her. Xiyu was speechless. This bastard really didn't know how to talk. No matter what, she was still a beauty. How could a country bumpkin not know her? I'll give you another 10 hours, I'll leave if you don't comprehend it. Xiyu snorted. I'll add another 20,000 star crystals. You can take your time, I'm not in a hurry, Lu Yin answered seriously. Xiyu snorted. Stop looking at me and be a wall. Lu Yin pursed his lips and turned his back to her. After a while, Lu Yin remembered something. Who are you? Why are you in Astral 10? I'm a student of Astral 8 here to train, Xiyu said. She didn't want to tell this bastard her name, it felt like an insult. Astral 8? Innerverse. Doesn't Astral 8 have a place to comprehend battle force? Why did you come all the way here? Lu Yin was curious. That's none of your business, Xiyu frowned. Lu Yin laughed. You weren't kicked out, were you? That's right, you have such a bad personality. Xiyu gritted her teeth and snorted, not replying. Right, let me ask you a question. How do I strengthen my battle force? Lu Yin was curious as he had never specifically looked into it before. Xiu muttered, you either have to endure intense pressure or keep fighting. Intense pressure? The stronger the pressure, the greater the increase in battle force? Lu Yin asked. Xiu frowned. From now on you're not allowed to say another word. In return I'll tell you some general knowledge about battle force. Alright, I'll stop talking, Lu Yin said helplessly. Xiu licked her dry lips and thought of something. She took out a drink from her cosmic ring and took a sip. Battle force comes from the core of the human body. Generally speaking, the human body has limitless potential, and the greater the pressure, the stronger the battle force. Humans are like springs, they either collapse or resist, and fighting is the best way to strengthen battle force. You've just awakened your battle force, so it's called rudimentary battle force. Battle force is divided by lines, and the highest known is 9-line battle force, while the lowest is rudimentary battle force like yours. Lu Yin's eyes flashed. 9-line battle force? It was rumored that a powerhouse with battle force could crush the heavens, so was this 9-line battle force. Welcome aboard. Stay tuned and subscribe to Han Li's Wuxia Adventures for more thrilling content. Chapter 130. That's all I know. Ask your mentor if you want to know more. Lu Yin fell into deep thought. A gust of wind blew through the desert, leaving only Shiyu's occasional cries of pain. It was easy to break down in this dark environment, especially when faced with great pressure. Even an elite student of Astral 8 like Shiyu found it hard to bear. 2 days later, almost 50 hours later, Shiyu was on the verge of collapse. Her dark blue hair was starting to turn yellow, her skin was no longer as delicate and fair as before, and her pupils were dilated. She even had occasional hallucinations. Lu Yin frowned. She was doomed at this rate, but there was nothing he could do to help. The whistling sound caused Shiyu to subconsciously tremble. She was already terrified of such sounds, and she hugged her arms as her entire body trembled. Lu Yin sighed and suddenly hugged her, whispering 3 words into her ear, washboard. The next moment, Shiyu's expression changed and her face flushed red. You pervert! With her shout, a gust of wind blew past them. Shiyu was enraged, and with the boundless pressure, a gust of wind spiraled out of her body. This was battle force. After dozens of hours of inhumane torture, Shiyu had finally comprehended battle force. However, she didn't have the time to care. She just wanted to bite this bastard in front of her to death. Lu Yin laughed and pointed at her. Congratulations, you've succeeded. Shiyu froze and looked at her body. This was battle force? She had really succeeded. Lu Yin stood up and stretched lazily. Shiyu was overjoyed. It really worked. Great. After such a long period of torture, it really worked. Above, the Sand Master raised a brow. Comprehending battle force depends on one's willpower. Some people can't comprehend it their entire lives, while others can quickly. This girl is not bad, she can be considered a genius. Hey, you can pay me now, Lu Yin said, looking at her. Shiyu looked up, and when she saw Lu Yin's face, the word washboard appeared in her mind. This bastard, she thought as she gathered battle force in her palm and struck out. Go to hell. Lu Yin dodged, annoyed. Woman, you're biting the hand that feeds you. Pervert. Shiyu roared, but her body swayed and she squatted down weakly. After such a long period of torture, she was at her limit. He walked up to her and squatted down as well. Let's settle the bill. Don't tell me you don't have enough money. Shiyu snorted and took out a Mavis bank card. There's 60,000 cubic meters in here. Don't tell anyone what happened here, including you and what you did to me. What did I do to you? Lu Yin was puzzled, but he really hadn't done anything. Shiyu was furious. You're not allowed to say those words in this lifetime. A washboard? Shut up. He put the card away. Is there really 60,000 cubes? Check it yourself. Shiyu didn't want to waste time with him. Lu Yin shrugged. Alright, if not, I'll reveal everything that happened here. You're a rich kid who cares about your reputation the most. Shiyu ignored him. It's time to leave. Since you gave me an extra 10,000, I'll take you with me. Lu Yin clenched his fist. Shiyu was disdainful. She stood up and shouted weakly, Sandmaster, I want to leave. Lu Yin froze. Sandmaster? Sure. A voice rang out from the void and she was pulled out by an invisible force. Lu Yin's eyes widened. How was that possible? He was speechless. He'd forgotten that the sand ocean had a mentor. If he'd known, he would have left at any time. Sandmaster, I want to leave too, he shouted. No one bothered with him. Lu Yin shouted once more. Still no one bothered. Lu Yin was speechless, she was too biased. He soared into the air, his battle force surging around him as he resisted the wind. Endless pressure descended upon him, but it wasn't enough to make him uncomfortable. Xiyu had comprehended battle force during this time, while he'd grown a bit stronger. He was already used to this kind of pressure. Soon he touched the upper layer of sand and charged in, quickly crossing 30 meters of sand. With a soft sound, he burst out of the desert and saw the sunlight he hadn't seen in a long time. He couldn't get used to the glaring light, and by the time he could see clearly, she was no longer there. He didn't mind. That woman's attitude towards him was too bad, and it would probably be another fierce battle if they met again. After being tortured for so many days, he just wanted to rest up and roll his die. On the other side, Xiyu walked out of the sand ocean in a sorry state and appeared at the teleportation device. The students waiting for her looked at her in shock. She was in such a sorry state with her clothes in tatters. What happened? Miss Xiyu, you? Let's go. Xiyu didn't want to say anything else and stepped into the teleportation device. Bastard, I'll teach you a lesson. Xiyu left in a hurry, not even bothering to say goodbye to Big Pao and Little Pao as she left on the Soul Dream tribe's ship. The middle-aged woman from the Soul Dream tribe looked at her worriedly. After a while, Xiyu finished washing up and regained her beautiful appearance. You've suffered, young mistress, the woman said respectfully. Xiyu took a deep breath and looked out at the dark sky. It's nothing. Young mistress, your battle force? The woman asked hesitantly. Xiyu raised her hand and a wisp of air surrounded her. It wasn't star energy or air, but it gave off a strong feeling that it could pierce through anything. Many people were shocked to see this. It was battle force. You've succeeded, young mistress. You've comprehended battle force in just a few days. That's great. You're definitely the fastest person in Astral 8 to comprehend battle force. Xiyu was reminded of Lu Yin when she heard the word fastest. That bastard had comprehended it in less than 10 hours, and she'd only been able to do so because of what he'd said to her. That bastard. She wouldn't be Xiyu if she didn't get her revenge. Announce that Astral 10's Lu Yin has molested me, Xiyu suddenly said with a smug expression. The woman and the others were shocked. What? Someone has molested you? Who? The Soul Dream tribe won't let them off. It's none of your business. Announce that Astral 10's Lu Yin has molested me, Xiyu said with a smirk. She wanted to let that bastard know that she wasn't someone to be trifled with. A washboard? It was clearly huge. The woman was put in a difficult position, but under Xiyu's icy gaze she could only comply. Not long after, the media that had been paying attention to Xiyu received news that shook the heavens. The star of the Immerse, the young mistress of the Soul Dream tribe, had been molested by someone from Astral 10 called Lu Yin. The news that Xiyu had been looking for a lover had also spread, and countless people had started paying attention to Astral 10. In Astral 8, a pair of eyes in the lava almost froze the sky. Tell Craner that Lu Yin doesn't need to train anymore. Bring back one of his hands. In a huge spacecraft in space, Heart Phoenix's expression was gloomy. Young master, the news might not be true. Miss Xiyu might have been taken advantage of, but it shouldn't have been molestation, someone cautioned. Heart Phoenix stared into space. Regardless of whether it's true or not, that woman is mine since my brother assigned her to me. I won't allow anyone else to touch what's mine. Lu Yin. First he stole my sentinel mission and now he's molesting my woman. How dare he? This subordinate will immediately report this to young Master Sarati. I'll take care of my own matters, Heart Phoenix said in a low voice. In another spacecraft in space, Bonnie of Astral 9 was shocked when he saw the news. Xiyu is a powerhouse of Astral 8 and few melders are a match for her. Looks like Astral 10 isn't full of trash after all. Mentor was right to send me here. Because of Xiyu's news, more and more spacecraft from the Innerverse entered space and headed towards the Outerverse. Xiyu was well aware of her own influence. Every member of the Soul Dream tribe was a celebrity, not to mention her as the young mistress. Furthermore, she was an elite student of Astral 8 and one of the strongest melders. She was certain that the news would cause Lu Yin trouble for a long time. At this moment she could almost see Lu Yin speechless with a headache and her lips curled up. Who told you to call me a washboard? It wasn't just the innerverse that paid attention to Xiyu. There was a considerable number of people in the outerverse as well. Big Pao and Little Pao were typical fans. The two couldn't believe it when they saw the news and they confirmed it several times before looking at each other in shock. Brother, Lu Yin? Is he from our academy? Who else could it be? Bro, we're in trouble, Little Pao said strangely. Big Pao was bitter. Pi Goddess was taken advantage of. Little Pao was helpless. Bro, that's not the point. There are probably a lot of people on their way to Astral 10 right now. Let's go find Lu Yin. He didn't even know that he was in trouble. Speaking of which, if he was able to take advantage of Xiyu, that woman definitely isn't weak. Outside of the training grounds, Astral 10 was unoccupied. Lu Yin found a random spot in the teleportation device and took a good nap. When he woke up he found over 100 messages looking for him, all from Big Pao and Little Pao. When he saw so many messages, Lu Yin felt that something was wrong and immediately replied. Not long after, Big Pao and Little Pao appeared. When they saw Lu Yin, Big Pao immediately grabbed him and gritted his teeth. You brat, tell me, which hand did you use to take advantage of her? Lu Yin was confused. Take advantage of what? Little Pao showed Lu Yin the news that Xiyu had released. Lu Yin finally found out about the woman's origins, and when he saw the contents of the news, he had a strange expression and was speechless. Take advantage of her? It wasn't that exaggerated, but he had already done what he could, so it could be considered taking advantage of her. But that woman was really crazy. She had clearly told him not to tell anyone about what had happened underground, but she had revealed it herself. There was definitely something wrong with her brain. When they saw Lu Yin's expression, Big Pao and Little Pao looked at each other. This bastard had really taken advantage of her. It's over, we have to think of something. There must be a lot of people on their way to Astral 10 right now, Big Pao said helplessly. Little Pao looked at Lu Yin. You should go into hiding. Those who can pursue Xiyu are all absolute experts of the younger generation. You've already experienced her strength. She's very strong, right? She's one of the top melders in Astral 8, but she's definitely not the strongest. Moreover, there are quite a number of her pursuers who are stronger than melders. Thank you for your support. Please subscribe, please donate. Welcome aboard. Stay tuned and subscribe to Han Li's Wuxia Adventures for more thrilling content. Chapter 131. Stronger than a melder? A Lameter? Are they explorers? Lu Yin was shocked. Little Pao shook his head. Explorers can't be. Once you become an explorer you can apply to graduate. Those people can't casually fight others, but there are definitely Lameters. Don't treat them as normal Lameters. They started out as melders and participated in ported battles as well as the Three Realms 6 Daos trial. It's possible for them to challenge those above their realms. You're still a melder, so it'll be difficult for you to fight them. You should hide. Lu Yin muttered to himself. His cultivation had just started on the right track, and now that he had comprehended battle force he could go even further in the ported battles. 100 victories was already very close to him, and the next step was the Three Realms 6 Daos trial. He didn't want to leave, and Xiyu had said that the way to strengthen battle force was through battle. Since she had attracted so many powerhouses to him, then he would fight. Seniors, I'll have to trouble you. I don't want to leave, so I'll stay here and cultivate. If anyone comes looking for trouble they can come straight at me. I won't hide. Big Pao's eyes lit up and he patted Lu Yin's shoulder. You're ambitious. Actually, I don't agree with you hiding either. Astral 10 isn't that afraid of trouble. If you can't even pass this trial, then how can you compete with others in the Three Realms 6 Daos? Alright, go cultivate. Little Pao nodded as well. This was the first time he had taken his junior seriously. This incident might not be a bad thing, but it all depended on how far he could go. At that moment, Big Pao received a notification on his gadget and his expression changed. So soon. Lu Yin and Little Pao looked at him. He solemnly said, someone is looking for trouble. It's Craner from Astral 8. Who? Lu Yin was puzzled. Big Pao replied, a melder from Astral 8 who isn't any weaker than Xiyu. He's also ranked second on the Blaze Realms rankings, second only to Jared. Blaze Realm. Lu Yin's face sank. This wasn't the first time he had encountered someone from that power. They had been the ones who had blocked Astral 10's entrance exam, but Lulu had taken care of them. This time he wanted to test himself against this so-called second place. Go to the Sand Ocean. If he's looking for trouble, we'll have him find you, Little Pao said. Lu Yin nodded, entered the teleportation device and headed straight to the Sand Ocean. At Astral 10's space station, a spacecraft's hatch opened and a group of disciples from the Blaze realm walked out. Craner disembarked and looked around. Soon this place would belong to the Blaze realm. Little Pao arrived at the space station and faced Craner directly. Craner looked at Little Pao. You're a student of Astral 10? Where's Lu Yin? Tell him to come out. Little Pao frowned and thought for a moment before raising his hand and using his star energy as a pen. He carved a few words on a tall wall that read, Lu Yin is at the Sand Ocean. He then glanced at Craner with disdain and turned to leave without another word. Craner was enraged that someone had actually dared to look down on him. The Sand Ocean? Fine, this is just a spar between students. I hope that the mentors of Astral 10 will not interfere. Little Pao slowly left. Craner snorted and walked towards the teleportation device. The disciples of the Blaze realm beside him wanted to follow but were stopped by Craner. Students could enter and leave but non-students could not. The 10 academies in the universe were all branches of the Astral Combat Academy. Together they were called the Astral Combat Academy. However, the universe was too vast and they could not all be contained in one location, so they were divided into 10 academies. Although Craner was a student of Astral 8 in name, he was actually also a student of Astral 10. Even though he looked down on Astral 10 was still Astral 10. Blaze Realm disciples were not allowed to enter, or else they would be looking down on the entire Astral Combat Academy. Craner's eyes darkened as he stepped into the teleportation device. That person had said that he would bring back one of Lu Yin's hands and make it impossible for him to cultivate. Thus he would break all 4 of his limbs. However, he had to ensure that the mentors of Astral 10 would not interfere. At this moment Lu Yin was deep in thought. With Shiyu's status, she should be able to attract many powerful enemies. If he just fought, it would be a waste of time. He inexplicably recalled what had happened during Earth's trial, and his lips curled up. This was not a bad idea. Craner looked at the endless desert in front of him. This was Astral 10's famous Sand Ocean. Rumor had it that it had once been a holy land for battle force cultivation, but because Astral 10's headmaster had gone mad, the Sand Ocean had undergone a drastic change, and this holy land had never returned. Student of Astral 8, Craner, requests an audience with Astral 10's Sandmaster, he shouted. Lu Yin raised his head and looked into the distance. He was finally here. What is it? Speak. The Sandmaster's voice echoed throughout the desert. Craner spoke in a low voice. This student wishes to spar with your academy's Lu Yin. I hope that the Sandmaster will grant my request. I won't interfere. Craner's lips curled up. I hope that the Sandmaster won't interfere before one side concedes. I already said that I won't interfere, so I won't. What are you blabbering on about? Get lost if you keep blabbering. The Sandmaster's temper was much worse than the Rainmaster's, and Craner was not angered by the scolding. Instead, he was pleased with himself. This was exactly what he wanted, and he had already recorded it down. As long as he crippled Lu Yin before he conceded, no one would be able to find fault with him. Lu Yin stood up and quietly watched the man walking over. This was Craner, who was ranked second on the Blaze Realm's rankings. Craner's eyes flashed when he saw Lu Yin and his voice turned cold. Junior Lu Yin, I've heard a lot about you. Lu Yin indifferently replied, looking for trouble? Craner smiled. What are you talking about, Junior? It's just a spar. As an elite student of Astral 10, you wouldn't be afraid, would you? Lu Yin's eyes narrowed. You don't have to provoke me. We can spar, but there are conditions. Craner was puzzled. Conditions? Lu Yin smiled. I was cultivating and you came to disturb me for no reason. You even said that you wanted to spar and wasted my time, so I have to repay you. Craner laughed and said disdainfully, Sure. What do you want, Junior? Lu Yin raised 2 fingers, 20,000 star crystals, and I'll spar with you. Craner's expression changed. 20,000? Are you crazy? Do you know how much 20,000 is? You don't have that, senior? Lu Yin mocked. Craner snorted. I do, but you're not worth that price. I can give you another option. If you lose, you have to give me your cosmic ring. If you win, I won't give you a single cent. How about that? Lu Yin tempted. Craner grinned. All right, you have to keep your word. Let's do that. Lu Yin's eyes lit up. Great, as expected of a powerhouse from the Blaze realm. Senior, you can make your move now. Craner sneered. Be careful, Junior. This senior doesn't know how to control his strength properly. He then charged towards Lu Yin, the star energy around his body transforming into flames that warped the air as he sent a palm strike towards Lu Yin from afar. It was as if a dazzling sun had appeared above the desert, accompanied by a scorching heat that engulfed Lu Yin. Lu Yin's expression changed. Craner truly lived up to his reputation as an elite student of Astral 8. His control of star energy was not inferior to Delay's, and he might even be slightly stronger. Craner's star energy was even more powerful than Arkino's, who he had met during Astral 10's exam. Arkino had borrowed the power of the sun, but Craner had relied on his own star energy to reach such a level. He truly lived up to his title as second on the rankings. Lu Yin still remembered his battle with Gerbok, who had needed to use the Thunderbolt fruit to unleash the Thunderbolt arrow. Compared to Craner, Craner was much stronger. This person's strength was not much weaker than Shiyu's musical battle technique, but it was a pity that he had met Lu Yin. Lu Yin disappeared with flash and tore through Craner's star energy seal to appear in front of him. He raised his hand and unleashed a 9 stacks 9-fold shockwave palm. Craner's pupils shrank and his scalp went numb as he sensed danger. He instinctively dodged, but there was a violent explosion that sent shockwaves in all directions, scattering Craner's star energy. He turned around. This person was definitely not an ordinary melder. He had been wrong. He had thought that teasing Shiyu was just a joke. He did not think that there was anyone in Astral 10 who could compare to Shiyu and suppress her, but now it seemed that this person was even more terrifying than he had imagined. Lu Yin did not stop and reached out to grab Craner. Craner growled as he donned his ring armor, his star energy transforming into flames that swept out in all directions. He was about to explode. Lu Yin was disdainful and unleashed another 9 stacks 9-fold shockwave palm on Craner's body. Craner spat out a mouthful of blood as his ring armor shattered and his body was pressed into the sand. The 9 stacks 9-fold shockwave palm could even match a Limitr's limitless palm, not to mention Craner. Although this person was strong, he was not as troublesome as Shiyu. Shiyu's musical battle technique was soft but firm, which posed a greater threat to Lu Yin. Lu Yin grabbed Craner, who was already heavily injured. He did not hold back and removed his cosmic ring before tossing Craner onto the sand. Stop. Craner shouted with great difficulty as he glared at Lu Yin. Lu Yin squatted down and looked at him indifferently. Are you trying to cheat? Craner gritted his teeth. There's a battle technique from the Blaze realm in there. If you steal it, you'll be hunted down endlessly by the Blaze realm. Lu Yin was disdainful. I never intended to take your so-called Blaze realm battle technique, but now that you've said that, I'll seem too cowardly if I don't take it. Craner's expression changed. What do you want? Lu Yin poured out everything from Craner's cosmic ring. There were more than 10,000 star crystals, some Mavis Bank cards, medicine, ring armor, and even some firearms. There were also many other things that Craner didn't recognize. The burning sensation was probably related to the battle technique that Craner was training in. Lu Yin didn't have the time to slowly ask. He took the star crystals, the Mavis Bank cards, a bottle of blood, and a red card with the Blaze Realms symbol on it. This was probably the Blaze Realms battle technique. Craner's face paled as he stared at Lu Yin. Once Lu Yin learned the Blaze Realms battle technique, he would be hunted down by the Blaze Realm, and he would not be able to escape responsibility. I'm not interested in the Blaze Realms battle technique, but I can still make quite a bit of money if I sell it, right? Lu Yin's lips curled up. Craner's tone was gloomy. What do you want? Lu Yin's gaze was cold. I want to know about Astral 8's top experts and the people you're loyal to. Craner sighed inwardly. This request wasn't too much. All right, I'll tell you. He paused for a moment, but when he saw Lu Yin staring at him, Craner organized his thoughts before speaking in a low voice. There's a Realm Master and 3 Area Masters in Astral 8. I'm loyal to one of the Area Masters, the top of the Blaze Realms rankings, Jared. Welcome aboard. Stay tuned and subscribe to Han Li's Wuxia Adventures for more thrilling content. Chapter 132. Wait, what Realm Master and Area Master? What does that mean? Lu Yin frowned. Craner was confused. You don't know what Realm Master and Area Master mean? Lu Yin snorted. Cut the crap. Just tell me. Craner coughed and wiped the blood from the corner of his mouth before panting slightly. The Astral Combat Academy holds the key to the 3 realms and 6 Daos, and there are many mysterious training grounds in the 3 realms and 6 Daos. Powerful students can control these training grounds and obtain great benefits. Those who can control an entire training ground are called Realm Masters, and those who can control a famous training ground are called Area Masters. You've never been to the 3 realms and 6 Daos? Lu Yin muttered to himself, so this was what the 3 realms and 6 Daos were like. Are Area Masters very strong? Craner sneered. Strong? That's not enough to describe it. Every training ground only has a few famous training grounds, and only the powerhouses who control these training grounds are qualified to be called Area Masters. Every training ground has thousands of elite students vying for supremacy, and these students aren't just melders. There are also quite a few limiters who can snatch the position of Area Master from these powerhouses. Tell me, isn't that strong? You're ranked second on the Blaze Realms rankings, but the person ranked first actually became an Area Master? Is he that much stronger than you? Lu Yin was confused. Craner was speechless, as this was something he had always been depressed about. Jared was much stronger than him, and not only was he a limiter, but he had also defeated many powerhouses to obtain the position of Area Master. Craner, did he know Jared's limits? What about the Realm Master? Who's that? Lu Yin was curious. How terrifying was it to be able to control an entire training ground? Lu Yin hadn't even obtained the qualifications to enter a training ground. Craner's eyes flashed with fear at the mention of the Realm Master. The Realm Master's name is Feng Shang, and he's the strongest student in Astral 8. He's also a member of the Council of Astral Academy. He founded the Gale sect and stands at the peak of the Tao of Illusion. Council of Astral Academy. Lu Yin was puzzled. Craner said, the Astral Academy is divided into 10 academies, but there's a Council of Astral Academy that governs the entire academy. Only Realm Masters can join it. It's a subordinate organization to the 10 Arbiters Council, and it has the authority to request the council. Can it meet the 10 Arbiters? Craner nodded. In theory, yes. How? Lu Yin asked. Craner replied, I've already said that only those who have reached the Realm Master level can join. In theory, one person from each academy can join, but it's been hundreds of years and the council has always maintained 9 members. Your Astral 10 has already been separated from the council for hundreds of years. Lu Yin fell silent. Rumor has it that your Astral 10 has been exiled to the Outerverse. Although it was the 10 Arbiters Council that made the decision, the topic of discussion came from the Student Council. The Student Council then reported the topic to the 10 Arbiters Council, and in the end the 10 Arbiters decided that Astral 10 should be exiled. Speaking of which, you should really thank the Student Council. Otherwise, you wouldn't have had the chance to join Astral 10, Craner mocked. Lu Yin raised a hand and smacked Craner's head. If you want to speak, then speak. Don't be so sarcastic. Craner was furious, but since he could not defeat Lu Yin, he could only endure it. Tell me about Jared. How strong is he? Lu Yin was curious. He had a premonition that he would definitely meet this person in the future. Craner shook his head. I don't know. Jared is the strongest descendant of the Blaze Realm, and the Blaze Realm has used all of their cultivation resources on him. I only know that he must have learned the Blaze Realm's ancient battle technique, the Karmic Flame Sword. As for what he obtained in Astral 8, I don't know. Plus, he's an Area Master, so no one knows what he obtained in the Tao of Illusions. No one has ever forced him to use his true strength. Lu Yin's expression turned serious. This person was more troublesome than he had imagined. The Karmic Flame Sword was not simple, and the Blaze Realm had been able to survive in the Innerverse for countless years. This battle technique must have been very useful, and there was also the Tao of Illusions, one of the 6 Daos. Is Feng Shang the Realm Master of the Tao of Illusions? Does that mean that the Tao of Illusions belongs to Astral 8? Lu Yin asked. Craner shook his head. Aside from the 3 realms, The other 6 DAOs all have people from their respective academies. However, Astral 8 mainly focuses on the Dao of Illusions. This is a tacit agreement between the 6 academies. Every academy focuses on a single Dao, and anyone who tries to snatch more will definitely incur everyone's wrath. Lu Yin was unhappy. The 3 realms had been split between the first 3 academies, and the remaining 6 DAOs had been split between the 6 academies. Astral 10 had nothing to do with the division. It was no wonder that Astral 10 had set a rule that only those who had won 100 ported battles could enter the trial zones. The other 9 academies had already split their territories, so any student from Astral 10 would definitely be unlucky if they entered. They would either be laughed at or directly expelled. I've already said so much. Can you return my things now? Craner asked. Lu Yin casually tossed the red crystal card back to Craner. He really did not care about the Blaze Realm's battle techniques as he had not even fully learned his own. Unless it was a truly top-notch battle technique, he did not care. If it was the Karmic Flame Sword, then he would not return it so easily. How much money do you have in these cards? Lu Yin asked. Craner gritted his teeth and his expression turned ugly. 70,000 star crystals. Lu Yin's eyes lit up and he could not help but laugh. He was rich again. Including Shiyu's, he now had nearly 150,000 star crystals on him, which was a huge sum. Robbing was still the fastest way, especially for the elite students of the Innerverse. They were rich, unlike the students of the Great Yu Empire who only had a few star crystals. Not bad, not bad. Feel free to challenge me again, Lu Yin encouraged. As he spoke, he took out a sign and wrote down the rules of the spar. Just like Craner, the loser had to hand over their cosmic ring. He knew that there would definitely be a lot of bored students who would come looking for trouble, but he was too lazy to explain the rules. Craner's chest tightened when he saw the rules and he coughed again. This time there was even a trace of blood. He glared fiercely at Lu Yin before turning to leave. Feel free to come again, Lu Yin called out with a smile. Craner coughed again and ran away impatiently. Today had been a nightmare for him. He had never thought that Astral 10 would have such a strong person whose strength surpassed all melders. Unless that person made a move, there were not many melders who could be this person's match. As he watched Craner disappear, Lu Yin's smile faded, replaced by a solemn expression. The other powerhouses from the other academies had not expected this. They had thought that after becoming a melder, Lu Yin's physical body and battle force would allow him to dominate the world. However, based on Craner's description, he was still far from being able to do so. He might not even be able to defeat an area master, let alone a realm master. There were still the top 3 academies that dominated the 3 realms, and there would only be more powerhouses there. I'm still too slow. I need to get stronger as soon as possible, Lu Yin thought to himself. A tall figure had appeared behind him at some point. His body was naked and his muscles were bulging. His body was covered in scars and he quietly looked at Lu Yin. Lu Yin turned around and his expression changed when he saw the figure. He then thought of something and bowed slightly. Greetings, Sandmaster. The tall figure was the Sandmaster. Kid, you've comprehended battle force and have barely gained the recognition of the Sand Ocean. You can choose a battle technique and I'll help you deduce it. Lu Yin's eyes flashed as he had forgotten about this. If the Rain Observatory could gain recognition, then so could the Sand Ocean. Battle force was a sign of recognition, and the requirements were much higher than the Rain Observatory. Thank you, Sandmaster. Tell me, what battle technique? The Sandmaster's expression was solemn as he quietly looked at Lu Yin. Lu Yin was silent for a long time, and then he looked up and solemnly said, Flash. The Sandmaster's eyes narrowed. Let me see. Lu Yin exerted strength in his calves and his body vanished. His current flash was different from what Peach had taught him. He had incorporated some of White Flash's techniques into it, increasing his speed slightly. It was enough to deal with a normal melder or even a Limiter, but Lu Yin would never forget the scene of him being sealed by someone else's star energy during the ported battle. He did not want to repeat that and wanted to increase his flash's speed again. The Sandmaster was shocked when he saw the Day-Night clan's footwork battle technique. This kid had truly surprised him. Lu Yin had a terrifying innate physical gift, a sealed body, and the technique that Guan Yu had mentioned. Now he even had the Day-Night clan's battle technique. Very good, very smart, but too bad it was too messy. Kid, do you know that when the body breaks through a certain limit, it will bring about different changes? The Sand Master asked calmly as he placed a hand on Lu Yin's shoulder. Let me see your limit. The Sand Master exerted strength with one hand, causing Lu Yin to feel a sharp pain in his shoulder. The scene in front of him changed and the desert disappeared as if he was teleporting. No, it wasn't the desert that had teleported but Lu Yin himself. His eyes could not keep up with the changes as he moved too quickly. A series of afterimages slowly disappeared behind him, and spatial cracks even appeared on both sides of him. Lu Yin's pupils shrank. Spatial cracks? This wasn't something that a melder could achieve. What kind of speed was this that could tear the void apart? The Sand Master was shocked as well. This kid's body had yet to reach its limit and the Sand Master liked it. He thought to himself as he increased his speed. Pain spread throughout Lu Yin's body as his skin slowly cracked open. Spatial cracks streaked past him like water, and he caught a glimpse of Michelle before disappearing in an instant. Suddenly, everything in front of him went still and Lu Yin vomited. He had fainted because his speed had been too fast for his body to keep up. The Sand Master was astonished. After the seal had been removed, Lu Yin's body had become so terrifying that few melders could compare to him. This person's family might be extremely powerful, but where did they come from? Lu Yin could not tell as there were no obvious characteristics. The few families with powerful bodies all had obvious characteristics. After vomiting for a while, Lu Yin finally recovered. His face was a little pale and he smiled bitterly. Sandmaster, that was too fast. The Sandmaster calmly replied, that was the limit of what your brain can handle. Feel it for yourself. By the way, your body has yet to reach its limit. Lu Yin was shocked. I can do that? The Sandmaster gazed into the depths of the desert. Footwork battle techniques require a high level of physical strength. Your body is very strong and you should be able to achieve it if you use it properly. Feel it for yourself. With that, he vanished. Lu Yin muttered to himself and then sat down to carefully experience the extreme speed and physical reaction he had just experienced. The Sandmaster had just left when his expression changed. He looked into the distance, muttered to himself and then stepped into the void. Welcome aboard. Stay tuned and subscribe to Han Li's Wuxia Adventures for more thrilling content. Chapter 133. At the same time in the Rain Observatory, the Rain Master opened his eyes, sighed and stepped into the void. In the treasury, Silver was flipping through the mission list in boredom. Old Kai waved his hand and disappeared, leaving Silver staring blankly ahead. Where did he go? At the trial zone entrance, Coco was determined to challenge the academy again. She gritted her teeth and wanted to step into the teleportation stone's range, but she was blocked by an invisible force. In the distance, the trial master had disappeared. In the endless skies of Astral 10, there was a depression filled with black fossils. The crazy headmaster had his hands clasped behind his back as he stared at the stars with a complicated expression. Beside him, the Sand Master and the others appeared one after another. There were 5 of them in total and they surrounded the crazy headmaster. The crazy headmaster retracted his gaze from the stars and looked at them. He slowly bowed with a solemn expression. It's been hard on you all for so many years. The 5 retreated at the same time. Headmaster, there's no need to be like this. We can't afford it, the Rainmaster said in a low voice. The crazy headmaster sighed and his gaze dimmed. My academy has experienced endless glory, but it's on the verge of collapse because of me. I've let down my ancestors and I've let down all of you who have watched over me for 1,000 years. The Sandmaster's gaze was heavy. Imprisonment is imprisonment. We old farts are just jailers. This is our mission. If you have something to say it while you're not crazy. The crazy headmaster's gaze changed from cloudy to abnormally bright. In the name of the headmaster, I would like to request that all of you fulfill your duties as mentors and help my academy regain its former glory. Old Kai rolled his eyes. Don't joke around. We're not real mentors, so we don't have time to help you. The trial master's eyes widened. I'm powerless. The Sand Master snorted, but he did not say anything. The Star Master's expression did not change. The Rain Master shook his head. The crazy headmaster bowed again. 8,000 years ago, because of my mistake, the Academy's library was burned. More than half of the academy collapsed and the mentors either left or died. More than half of the students were lost. This is my mistake and I will make up for it. But please, for Wujiang's sake, help me this once. Help Wujiang this once. The 5 people's bodies trembled. The 2 words boundless made them cautious as well as respect. The 5 of you have been here for 1,000 years, and what you've seen, felt, and heard is no less than what I have. You should know that the boundless border is a place where the blood of our seniors was forged into heroic souls, and their legacy has been passed down through the ages. I hope that you can forgive them, even if it's just one chance. We cannot allow the boundless border to be shamed. The boundless border was once a leading ship, and its pride is enough to transcend history and be passed down to these children. The trial master sighed and raised his head. His eyes were completely open and he no longer looked as old as he had in the beginning. For Wujiang's sake, I can fulfill my duties as a mentor. The rain master nodded. Yes. The sand master looked at the crazy dean and after a while he said, all right. Old Kai rolled his eyes. It's a losing deal. Forget it, I'll just treat it as a game. I'll make it clear that it's only once. The star master nodded. Wujiang. Sure. The crazy headmaster was very grateful. Thank you, all 5 of you. There's still half a month before the freshman tournament. After that, the 5 of you can choose some talents to nurture in order to prepare for the upcoming astral combat tournament. Thank you all. The 5 of them disappeared one after another. The crazy dean sighed and looked down at the entire astral 10. He saw all of the students with pained expressions. To him, being awake was far worse than being crazy. He had been the one who had destroyed Astral 10, and he had reduced it to the point where it was being forced into a corner by a bunch of rascals. However, this would not last forever. He would recover, and that day would be the day that the boundless border would shine. Not long after, the crazy dean's eyes turned murky and his hair flew in the wind. He had gone mad again. He raised his head and shouted, "You started this war and now you're reaping what you sowed." Ah, the war you started. Above the desert sea, the sandmaster looked at the crazy dean running through the endless sky and shook his head. He touched something he shouldn't have. What a pity. He then looked across the desert and saw Lu Yin, who was comprehending something. His eyes lit up. This kid has some talent. Although he's not the most talented of all the youths, he's much better than the others. He might be able to compete with the monsters on the top 100 rankings. Wujiang has some hope. A day later, Lu Yin opened his eyes and stood up. He used flash and his body fell into the desert. He had used too much force, but his speed was much faster than before. As long as my body can handle it, I can go even faster, he muttered to himself. After trying a few more times, he thought of his die and decided that it was time to roll it again. He then left the sand ocean. As he walked through the teleportation device, Lu Yin suddenly remembered that he hadn't been to any other places in Astral 10. He had only been to the Rain Observatory, the Sand Ocean, the Treasury, the Trial Zone entrance, Stargazing Deck, and the Space Station. Astral 10 had more than just these few places. He now wanted to go to the barren area outside the Treasury. If he wanted to roll his die, he should go to such a remote place. The other barren areas were too far away, just like the Rain Observatory. It would take at least a day to get there, and he didn't have that much time to waste. The Treasury was the closest. Not long after, Lu Yin passed through the Treasury and arrived at a barren grassland. There were many remains of buildings around him that stretched far into the distance. There were even cracks in the ground that emitted hot air. Although he didn't know what this place used to be, it should have been glorious in the past. The ruins covered a large area. He randomly found an abandoned attic and spread out his star energy. There was no one around, so he raised his hand and took out his die. It had been some time since he last rolled the die. Last time he had rolled 6 pips and experienced Delay's life. This time he hoped to roll 6 pips again. He reached out and tapped it, his gaze fixed on the die. Soon enough, the die stopped spinning with 1 pip. Unsurprisingly, 1 pip was the easiest to roll. If he was lucky, he could change his fate. If he was unlucky, Lu Yin paused for a moment, just like now. He picked up a bottle of medicine with a retro packaging. Pip had brought him this. He looked at the bottle and sighed. Although the packaging was retro, it didn't mean that the item was ancient. There were many civilizations in the universe, and some of them didn't even touch technology. This bottle of medicine clearly came from one of those civilizations. They were willing to interact with other civilizations in the universe, but they weren't willing to change their style. He opened the bottle and took a sniff. It was a very ordinary medicine. He casually put it away, crushed a cube of star crystals and tried again. The second time he rolled 5 pips. He stood up and thought about it for a moment before sitting down. It was impossible to find someone with an innate gift in 10 seconds. Where would he find one in 10 seconds? He had wasted another chance, so he tried again. The third time, the die slowly stopped spinning and finally stopped at 4 pips. Time stopped space. Lu Yin's vision changed and he appeared in a gray-white space. The 3-day countdown had begun. This pip wasn't bad and it gave him 3 days. He thought about it for a moment and decided to look at his star chart. He wanted to activate his 7th star and it would be best if he could activate his 8th as well. That way he would be able to absorb star energy 8 times faster and reach the peak of the melder realm as soon as possible. There was still a huge gap between a peak melder and a novice melder. The biggest difference was the amount of star energy, which could be described as an ocean. Craner was ranked 2nd on the Blaze Realms rankings and an elite student of Astral 8. He was a peak melder, and Lu Yin had felt the pressure of his star energy when they had fought. However, Lu Yin had used his powerful physical strength to counteract the pressure. If the two of them were evenly matched, then that pressure would be the deciding factor for victory. Lu Yin didn't want to lose in this aspect. With that in mind, Lu Yin took out 600 star crystals and tossed them out. The time instantly increased, but it wasn't the 33 days he had expected. Instead, it was only 16 days, which was almost half of the time he had expected. This meant that he would need to consume more star crystals in the future and not just 18 per day. Lu Yin sighed. He knew that it wouldn't be that easy. If it had always been 18 per day, then he would have enough to last him for almost 3 years. Whatever, he couldn't change it no matter what. He took out another 50 star crystals and increased the gravity by 50 times. He also took out his star chart to look at it. 19 days didn't pass quickly and Lu Yin wasn't in a rush. He looked at his star chart, occasionally practiced his battle techniques and rested every once in a while. 10 days later, his 7th star had been perfectly activated. A 7-star Sirius palm was far more powerful than a 6-star one. If he had been able to use it as a sentinel, then he would have been able to fight shits. With flash and other battle techniques, he might have been able to win. As a melder, he could use the Sirius palm to defeat an elite student like Craner without using the 9-stack shockwave palm. Right now, his strongest attack was the 9 stacks combined with the multiple shockwave palm. The power of the 9 stacks, 9 times shockwave palm was even stronger than the 7 stars cosmic palm. 7 stars were not enough to be his trump card, so he had to increase it further. Lu Yin immersed himself in his star chart for the next 9 days. As he counted down, he tossed out another 100 star crystals, increasing the time by another 8 days. After 17 days, the 8th star disappeared without a trace. Lu Yin frowned and looked around. He had had enough of this place and was about to throw up. No one would be able to stand staying in one place for almost a month. He rested for a few hours until the time was up, but he didn't increase the time. He had to go out. The scenery in front of him changed. A month had passed, but only a second had passed in reality. He raised his hand and 7 stars revolved around his palm. If not for the 9-stack shockwave palm, the Sirius palm would have been his strongest attack. The stars dissipated and the die appeared in his hand once more. He rolled it 3 times, so he still had one more chance. When the die stopped spinning, another pip appeared. Lu Yin was speechless. He wanted to see 3 pips the most, but he just couldn't roll them. Fate or luck, there was nothing he could do about it. This time roll 1 gave him something different. It was a tough piece of skin that he couldn't tell what kind of creature it was. There were long, strange words carved into it, and when he saw the words, his brain felt as if it had been struck hard. His eyes, ears, mouth, and nose all began to bleed. He hurriedly put the skin away, his pupils dilating and narrowing. Welcome aboard. Stay tuned and subscribe to Han Li's Wuxia Adventures for more thrilling content. Chapter 134. Who had written these words that had almost injured him? The person had to be a terrifying powerhouse, and the words shouldn't have been simple either. Lu Yin wiped away the blood stains, beads of sweat covering his forehead. He glanced at his cosmic ring fearfully and decided not to touch the skin unless he was a Lemeter or even stronger. Beep. A notification came from his gadget. Lu Yin glanced over and was surprised. Someone was looking for trouble again. Heart Phoenix. What a familiar name. Lu Yin's eyes flashed. Wasn't that the sentinel he'd met in the ported battles? He remembered that this person had an innate gift and was rather powerful. How had he found this place? Did he know that Lu Yin was seventh bro? Lu Yin didn't think too much about it and immediately rushed back to the sand ocean. At the same time, in Astral 10's space station, Big Pow and Little Pow stared at the man in front of them in shock. He was actually from the Phoenix family of the Innerverse. They had heard of Heart Phoenix before. He was an absolute elite of Astral 5. Although he was only a sentinel, he had defeated many melders. However, that alone wasn't enough to shock them. What truly shocked them was his older brother, Serati Phoenix. The Sand Ocean used to be Astral 10's battle force holy land, but it's now in decline. Is that Lu Yin? Heart asked coldly. Big Pow coughed. That's right. Heart's eyes flashed as he stepped into the teleportation device. The desert's climate was dry and hot. It was not a good place for many people, but for Heart this place was very suitable for him because he represented heat and fire. Lu Yin arrived one step ahead of Heart, and the signboard with the rules of the spar was placed right next to the teleportation device. He was looking forward to it. Heart had been on par with him when he was a sentinel, so how far could Lu Yin go with his current strength? Would he be able to insta-kill Heart? Heart walked out of the teleportation device and immediately saw the signboard. His eyes were filled with mockery as he glanced at the distant Lu Yin. He casually tossed a bank card onto the sand and arrogantly looked at Lu Yin. I have plenty of money. Let's see if you have the ability to take it. Lu Yin raised an eyebrow. Heart was much more arrogant than Craner. He had even used his real name in the ported battles. Lu Yin liked this person, but it was a pity that he wasn't as impulsive as Craner. Otherwise, all the money in that cosmic ring would have been his. You're doing this for Shiyu? Heart's gaze turned cold as he stared at Lu Yin. You don't deserve to call me that. She's my fiancée, and touching her is the same as touching the Phoenix family. Are you prepared to face the wrath of the Phoenix family? Lu Yin was dumbfounded. That was too pretentious of him. How old are you? Lu Yin couldn't help but ask. Heart's the sand of the sand his eyes. Back in the ported battles he had faced this attack with his cosmic palm. Now he slowly raised his hand. 9 stacks, 9-fold shockwave palm. Boom. Waves of golden flames swept out in all directions, burning the void and scorching the surface of the desert black. Lu Yin tore apart the golden firebird with a single palm and descended upon Heart's head, only a centimeter away. The terrifying pressure caused the sand beneath Heart's feet to split apart, forming a cone-shaped crater. Heart himself remained motionless in his original position, his eyes filled with boundless shock. Young Master Heart. Young Master Heart. The students who had followed Heart to Astral 10 cried out in surprise. They heaved a sigh of relief when they saw that Heart hadn't been attacked. They looked at Lu Yin in shock. Astral 10 actually had such a powerhouse. In all of Astral 5, there weren't more than 10 melders who could defeat Heart in one move. This person's strength could be ranked among the top 10 melders in Astral 5. Lu Yin's lips curled up as he retracted his hand and looked at the teleportation device. Give me the crystal card. A melder hurriedly ran over to pick up the card from the sand and handed it to Lu Yin respectfully. Regardless of whether it was Astral 10 or Astral 5, the strong were the foundation of everything. Heart stared at Lu Yin, his face gradually turning pale. He hadn't even had time to react before he had been defeated. Have we fought before? Heart enunciated each word clearly. Lu Yin put the card away. Maybe, but I don't remember. Heart clenched his fists. He had been crushed. This was a disgrace, but the Phoenix family would not allow themselves to be crushed. I'll be back soon, Heart said before walking into the depths of the desert. He wanted to break through to the Melder realm. Only then would he be able to fight this person. The others hurriedly followed to protect him. Lu Yin couldn't help but laugh. This guy wasn't polite at all. Elsewhere, another spacecraft landed at Astral 10's space station. This one had the Astral 9 insignia on it. Little Pow was shocked. Someone from Astral 9 had come? The hatch opened and Bonnie walked out. He was wearing a black jacket with a black phoenix imprinted on the back. Little Pao's expression turned strange when he saw this. This was the Dark Phoenix clan. Interesting. The Phoenix family was still here, but the Dark Phoenix clan had actually arrived. An undying bird and a fallen undying bird. Now that the disciples of their mortal enemies had met, things would get interesting. Bonnie's eyes flashed as he looked at the wall beside him. He walked towards the teleportation device and chose the sand ocean. Little Pao hurriedly followed. Above the desert, Lu Yin looked at his cosmic ring and saw that he now had 150,000 cubes of crystals in his Mavis Bank crystal card, which was quite a lot. With the additional 20,000 crystals he could be considered rich. At this moment, a vast golden flame swept across the sky from the depths of the desert, illuminating the already bright desert with a golden hue. Lu Yin was looking forward to the battle. Heart was one of the few sentinels who could threaten him. Now that he had become a melder, his strength would definitely change drastically. Lu Yin wondered if he would be able to catch up to Craner. Although Heart's innate gift was extraordinary, it shouldn't be too far off since Craner was ranked second on the Blaze Realms rankings. As the golden flame swept across the desert, the star energy in the sand ocean began to boil. The cries of the undying bird shook Lu Yin's heart. This was an invisible pressure. Suddenly, a figure soared into the sky and stared into the distance. Phoenix. It's the Phoenix clan. Shameless family. The black flame then soared into the sky and swept into the distance. Lu Yin was shocked. What was going on? Little Pao's eyes lit up as he stood in the teleportation device. Deep in the desert, the Sand Master was bewildered. The Dark Phoenix clan? What a coincidence. On the other side, Heart, who was in the midst of breaking through to the Melder realm, suddenly opened his eyes and looked into the distance with a furious expression. It's those traitors. Capture them. Yes, young master. A few students from Astral 5 responded and rushed into the distance. Shocking battle fluctuations quickly spread across the desert. Black flames spread out, bringing with them boundless heat, but upon contact, one would feel a chill that corroded star energy. Although the students from Astral 5 were strong, they were suppressed by Bonnie alone. He was a genius of the Dark Phoenix clan and was on par with the Phoenix clan. Lu Yin stood in the desert and looked up. The various battle techniques in the sky dazzled him, and even Bonnie's black undying bird surprised him. What a powerful innate gift. In the distance, the golden flames were even more brilliant, accompanied by terrifying heat. Although Heart had just broken through, his golden flames were able to match the black flames. It was precisely because of this that the students from Astral 5 were able to hold on. So many years of grudges run deep in their bones. They're fighting to the death before even meeting. How lively, Little Pao exclaimed. Lu Yin was puzzled. Who's that? He's a fallen undying bird from the Dark Phoenix clan. The kid you fought with before is called Heart Phoenix, and he's from the Phoenix clan of the Immerse. He's also a golden undying bird. These two clans have been separated for a long time, and since then they've been opposing each other for a long time. Lu Yin nodded. No wonder they're so similar. It's a pity that the Dark Phoenix clan couldn't defeat the Phoenix clan, or else they wouldn't have been chased to the endless weaves. Bonnie is a student from Astral 9, and he should have come to our academy to scout for information on our enemies. Lu Yin couldn't help but laugh. Astral 9 and Astral 10 were neighboring academies, so they were naturally enemies. Heart Phoenix had come at a bad time, but it was a good thing for them since he could fight Bonnie head-on. It didn't take long for the students from Astral 5 to be defeated. Phoenix, get the hell out here. Bonnie roared. In the distance, the golden flames converged, and a terrifying undying bird soared into the sky, burning the void and distorting it. Heart had broken through to the Melder realm and immediately displayed a terrifying strength that far surpassed Schutz's level and even Craner's. Lu Yin was astonished by how powerful his innate gift was. The golden undying bird flapped its wings as Heart Phoenix stood within the flames and looked at Bonnie coldly. Who gave you the guts to bare your fangs at your master? Bonnie's gaze turned ferocious and he almost lost his composure. Phoenix, you filthy, despicable family. You should all be exterminated. The black undying bird screeched at the sky and charged towards Heart. Heart sneered. A fallen bloodline. A slave will always be a slave. The golden undying bird charged forward as well. The two huge undying birds, one golden and one black, collided in the desert, producing a violent sound. The air was evaporated, causing the void to distort and almost collapse. A yellow storm was set off in the desert, accompanied by golden and black flames, sweeping through the world. The Astral 5 students were shocked and hurriedly dodged. Lu Yin was very direct and stood behind Little Pao. Little Pao was speechless. "Junior, you're not cute at all." He raised a hand and formed an invisible wall of star energy. This was a clash between two undying birds, and the shockwaves from the collision could turn a normal melder to ash. However, Little Pao had easily blocked the attack, which shocked Lu Yin. After Astral 10 had been chased to the outer verse, all of the students had left except for Big Pao and Little Pao. It was rumored that the two were too weak to be accepted by any academy, but Lu Yin didn't believe it. He had always felt that these two were not simple. Welcome aboard. Stay tuned and subscribe to Han Li's Wuxia Adventures for more thrilling content. Chapter 135. Little Pao and Lu Yin felt the same way until he received the Sandmaster's warning. He had no choice but to leave and disappear. High up in the sky, the two phoenixes were still fighting when Lu Yin suddenly appeared in front of Heart and pressed down with a 9 stacks 9-fold shockwave palm. The terrifying force of the palm shattered the golden phoenixes and pressed Heart into the ground. At the same time, Lu Yin turned around and slapped Bonnie with his other palm. Bonnie's pupils shrank as he blasted out black flames, but they were still dispersed by Lu Yin's palm. The 9 stacks shockwave palm contained 9 stacks, and when combined with a 9-fold shockwave palm, its power was immeasurable. At least Heart, Bonnie, and Anouk were unable to withstand it and were also pressed into the ground. A shocking clash between phoenixes had been disrupted by Lu Yin just like that. The students from Astral 5 were shocked. They knew how powerful Heart was after breaking through to the Melder realm. He could be considered one of the top 10 Melders in Astral 5, but he had still been defeated. This person's strength had exceeded their expectations. Deep in the desert, Heart was bleeding from the corner of his mouth as he furiously looked up. He had been defeated again even after breaking through to the Melder realm. How is this person so strong? Can he compete with those freaks? Not far away, Bonnie spat out a mouthful of blood and looked up in shock. There was actually someone in the same realm as him in Astral 10 who could crush him. Although he wasn't the strongest Melder in Astral 9, he was still in the top 5. No wonder the mentors had sent him here to observe. Astral 10 had hidden its strength so deeply. Lu Yin looked down. Astral 10 is not a place for you to settle your personal grudges. If you want to fight, you can come to me. If not, please leave. Heart wiped the blood off his mouth and stood up. Let's go. Not far away, Bonnie stood up and glared at Heart. Finally, he looked at Lu Yin and left as well. Lu Yin's palm had shown them that they weren't his match, so there was no need to continue the fight. If they wanted to fight, there would be plenty of opportunities in the future. As he watched the two groups leave, Lu Yin felt that it was a pity that he had been too heavy-handed. Otherwise, he could have profited greatly. Little Pao kept an eye on the two groups until they boarded a spacecraft and left Astral 10. Within the spacecraft, Heart activated his gadget and a screen appeared in front of him. A handsome man appeared on it. When they saw the man, the Astral 5 students immediately bowed, not daring to raise their heads. What's the matter? Heart grit his teeth. I want to enter my family's secret. I asked, what's the matter? I lost. I lost to Astral 10's Lu Yin. How many moves? 1 move. Heart's expression was unsightly. The man was silent. Unless you transform, you won't be a match for that person. Hearing the word metamorphosis, Heart's expression changed. A trace of fear flashed through his eyes. Can I metamorphose? The man's gaze was cold. If you want to win, you must transform. But if you want to transform, you'll have a slim chance of surviving. Heart clenched his fists. He wasn't just thinking about Lu Yin, but also those freakish Melders from Astral 5. Lu Yin could only be considered a catalyst, and he didn't want to be inferior to a student from an abandoned academy. He wanted to carry the glory of the Phoenix family on his shoulders, not some weakling who couldn't even defeat a degenerate traitor. I'll transform. The man smiled. I'll pass down the order. If you succeed, you can directly join the 10 Arbiters Council. If you fail and die, I'll avenge you. Lu Yin, right? I remember that name. Thank you, big brother, Hart said in a low voice. The screen disappeared, and the students from Astral 5 looked up and heaved a sigh of relief. The pressure of facing that person had been too great. He was one of the 10 arbiters, the undying Phoenix Sarati Phoenix. Over the next 2 days, Astral 10 was relatively peaceful. No one came and they were probably on their way. Lu Yin inquired about the others and found out that they had all found suitable places to train. There are other training grounds in Astral 10? Lu Yin was surprised. Little Pao replied, of course. Astral 10 has been around for countless years, and even though it was destroyed in an accident, some of the training grounds still exist. They just aren't as good as the Rain Observatory or the Sand Ocean, but there are definitely places that are suitable for them. For example, Zhao Yilong found a cliff and had an epiphany. There's also Zora who found a graveyard and has been dealing with skeletons all day. What about me? Are there any suitable places for me to train? Lu Yin asked. Little Pao rolled his eyes. Find one yourself. How would I know? I'm also a student and there aren't any mentors who truly understand Astral 10. Why don't you ask the dean? Lu Yin thought of that crazy old man. Forget it, he still wanted to live for a few more years. At this moment, Lu Yin recalled that Lulu had told him that she wanted to come to Astral 10 to obtain something and that she would have to fight someone. He wondered if she had obtained it. You should continue staying here. It's been quiet for a few days, but it won't be so quiet any longer. The Innerverse powerhouses should be arriving soon, Little Pao said. Lu Yin shrugged. It was about time. The news of the battle at the Sand Ocean in Astral 10 had somehow leaked out. Craner, Heart Phoenix and Bonnie Phoenix had all been defeated. These three were all famous figures in their respective academies, but they had all been defeated by Lu Yin, shocking all the other academies. News of Shiyu had already boosted Lu Yin's reputation and now more and more people had heard of him. Even the powerhouses who weren't interested in Shiyu had started investigating him and were eager to battle him. In Astral 6, some people were discussing, that's strange. Astral 10 is such a wasteland, but there's still someone who can defeat a disciple of the Phoenix family. Strange things happen every day. There are all kinds of people in the universe. I heard that the Blaze Realm is furious. Craner was ranked second on the Blaze Realm's rankings, but he had his cosmic ring stolen by Lu Yin. How embarrassing. They deserve it. The Blaze Realm failed during Astral 10's entrance exam, and now they sent someone to cause trouble and even got beaten up. The Blaze Realm's faces are black now. Chu, are you looking for death? You're also in the Tao of Illusion. Don't run into Jared or you'll be in trouble. What's there to be afraid of? You can just avoid the Tao of Illusion. It's not like you'll die there. But if you get killed, it'll be very damaging to your mind. Jared is an area master, and if he really wants to cause trouble for you, you won't be able to run anywhere. Shut up. Look who that is. The students who were discussing looked into the distance and sucked in a breath of cold air. What they saw was a charming and beautiful woman. Her white hair flowed down to her ankles and she wore a cool summer dress. Her skin was sparkling and translucent, and she wore a black ring with a silver hollow. It was Mila. It's Senior Mira. Senior Mira is back. The students shouted excitedly. Everyone else stared at Mira excitedly. Astral 6 was in an uproar. Mira was a well-deserved star in Astral 6. Because she had become an explorer, she could no longer stay in the academy. However, she was still a student of Astral 6 and a subordinate member of the 10 Arbiters Council. Her status was second only to the 10 arbiters. Mira smiled and swept her red eyes across the crowd. Many people's breaths quickened. She was too alluring. Lu Yin, I've underestimated you. You've already made such a name for yourself before even entering the trial zones. Now that I think about it, Xue is also in Astral 10. Interesting, Mira thought to herself. She walked slowly, but she disappeared quickly, leaving behind only a fragrant wind. Another day passed. 4 days after Hart and the others had left, more and more troublemakers appeared. They were all here for Shiyu wave after wave. There were people from all over the world and quite a few of them did not belong to the Astral Combat Academy. Lu Yin did not reject any of these people. According to his rules, he had earned quite a bit since no one was his match. True powerhouses would not run to the outerverse just because of a single sentence from Xiu. These people were all second-rate and could not even compare to Heart. In Lu Yin's eyes, they were all free money. In just a few short weeks, he had earned almost 300,000 star crystals. Even he felt that he was being too greedy. It was only after 2 weeks that his reputation grew that no one came to find trouble with him. The various academies had finally taken notice of him. Lu Yin's name was no longer unfamiliar, and at least a good number of people had heard of him. His reputation was great, but his reputation wasn't very good. He had taken liberties with Xiu, robbed his classmates and viewed wealth as his own life. Xiu returned to the Soul Dream tribe and was furious when she heard about this matter. Was there no one who could teach that bastard a lesson? In Astral 8, Craner stood nervously in the boiling lava, not daring to speak. He had been here for more than 10 days already. Above the lava, a scorching red current flowed into the distance like an ocean. You failed? A dull voice asked. Craner lowered his head. Yes, senior. I'm sorry I failed. Trash. Craner, did he dare to refute? Send people into the 6 DAS. Report to me immediately if you see anyone from Astral 10. I want to ban everyone from Astral 10. Craner was overjoyed. Yes. In Astral 10, Lu Yin did not know that something shocking was happening in the Great Yu Empire. The second prince, Duke Yushan, had led the 7th, 8th, 10th and 12th squadrons in betrayal. They had quickly invaded the 5 regions of the Frostwave Weave, shocking the entire weave and even the surrounding weaves. When Undying Yushan heard the news, he was so angry that he fell into a coma from his severe injuries. The Great Yu Empire was in a precarious situation. In the Imperial Palace, Doran Yushan's face was gloomy. I hereby announce that Duke Yushan, 7th Squadron Captain Batson, 8th Squadron Captain Shalash, 10th Squadron Captain Falut and 12th Squadron Captain Banjio have all betrayed the Empire. War has begun. Duke Yushan's sudden betrayal had caught the Great Yu Empire off guard. By the time they reacted, those loyal to Duke Yushan had already left, including Vice-Treasurer Sicker and a group of courtiers. The Empire's once powerful sword guard mercenaries had also left. Even many of Yu Academy's younger generation experts had left. The second ring of the Imperial Army was in chaos. Amidst these major events, there were also some minor incidents that did not attract much attention. For example, Zhang Dingtian's Saruzan Bai Shui and Susan had mysteriously disappeared. In peacetime, these incidents would have caused a huge commotion since they were all elites of Yu Academy. However, no one cared at this moment. A few more days passed and it was the day of Astral 10's new student competition. Lu Yin left the Sand Ocean early and appeared at the trial zone entrance where the competition would be held. Welcome aboard. Stay tuned and subscribe to Han Li's Wuxia Adventures for more thrilling content. Chapter 136. By the time Lu Yin arrived, there were already quite a few people there. Brother Lu. Coco shouted excitedly, delighted to see him. Lu Yin tousled her hair. You've improved quite a bit recently, you've even become a melder. How about it? Do you want to compete with me? Coco stuck out her tongue. I don't want to compete with you. We all heard that you've defeated many students from other academies. You're quite famous. Is that so? Lu Yin blinked. He really hadn't noticed. After all, Coco's reputation wasn't very good, and he didn't want to add to his troubles. Not far away, Zora was fiddling with her silver needles. Lu Yin felt a chill run down his spine when he saw the large needles, and he suddenly thought of Coco's innate gift. Could this be a specialty of Windrift Hall? On the other side, Meng Yu stood alone. He had also become a melder and his palms were yellow. He looked much stronger than before. When he saw Lu Yin look over, Meng Yu clenched his fists provocatively. Even further away, Xia Luo was casually sitting beside the trial master, as if he was already familiar with him. In the furthest corner, Dark Void sat alone. His hair that seemed to absorb light caught Lu Yin's attention, as he was the most difficult person to see through. He definitely had an innate gift and he wasn't weak either. At that moment, Schutz walked out of the teleportation stone. The trial master announced, Schutz 52 wins 237 losses. Lu Yin was shocked. A win rate of almost 4-1 was not bad. It was about the same as Michelle's win rate from a month ago. Schutz's eyes flashed when he saw Lu Yin, and he nodded before standing to the side. The two were both from the Great Yu Empire, but they weren't familiar with each other. Lu Yin didn't know much about Schutz either, and he had assumed that Schutz would quickly vanquish the Innerverse powerhouses after arriving at Astral 10. Coco whispered into Lu Yin's ear, "This person is crazy. He challenges people every day and fights every day. Even the trial master said that he's suited to growing through battle." Lu Yin nodded. Not long after, Silver appeared, beaming like a fox. Coco subconsciously took a few steps back when she saw him, feeling that this person was terrifying. Lu Yin nodded at Silver. Silver smiled. "Congratulations, student Lu. You've become famous recently." "Not really," Lu Yin replied. Silver smiled. "That's not necessarily true. You might attract some attention." Lu Yin's eyes narrowed. "Who? The Neo-Human Alliance?" He couldn't see through Silver. This person was related to the Neo-Human Alliance, but he wasn't a zombie. He was a very strange person and Xiao Luo seemed to hate him. Hui Day Night arrived and stared coldly at Lu Yin before standing to the side. Not long after, there was the hum of a sword and Zhao Yilong appeared. He deliberately glanced at Lu Yin before standing quietly to the side. Lu Yin felt that he was becoming too famous, which wasn't good. Everyone was treating him as a rival. These sentinels had all broken through to the Melder realm, and everyone's power had greatly increased, which had piqued his interest. After a while, Michelle walked out of the teleportation device and arrived near the group. She looked at Lu Yin as if she had something to say, but she didn't. When he saw her, he recalled the time when the Sandmaster had taken him to experience the limits of Flash. They had met each other at that time and she should have seen his afterimages. With the appearance of Big Pow and Little Pow, these two people were very optimistic every day. "Who else isn't here?" Big Pow asked. Lu Yin replied, "Lulu." Big Pow looked at his gadget. "It doesn't matter. Let's wait." The new student competition seemed very casual in Astral 10. If it had been held in any other academy, there would have been many spectators already and no one would have waited. After waiting for a full hour, Lulu finally appeared, her forehead covered in sweat and her breathing ragged. Seeing that everyone had arrived, Big Pow brought them to a grassy area far away from the teleportation stone and smiled. "Alright, since everyone is here, I hereby announce the start of the new student competition. Come. Draw lots. 1 against 2, 3 against 4 and so on. Those who advance will continue to fight until the strongest is decided." The new student competition is to determine the rankings of the new students and also to display your strongest power. If the mentors see this, they might be interested and teach you. So, I advise everyone to be as serious as possible. If a mentor takes a fancy to you, it might change the course of your life. Little Pow tempted. Everyone was excited. Even the weakest mentor in Astral 10 was a hunter. With a hunter's guidance, they would definitely become very strong. They had come to Astral 10 to become stronger, so they would definitely put their lives on the line for this competition. The lot drawing ended quickly and Lu Yin drew number 9. He looked around and fixed his gaze on Zora. She had drawn number 10, which made her his opponent. Zora also saw the number 9 in Lu Yin's hand, and her expression turned bitter. As an elite of Windrift Hall, she was not cut off from the outside world and naturally knew about Lu Yin's recent achievements. It was precisely because of this that she felt depressed. This person had even defeated the second place on the Blaze Realms rankings. He was an absolute monster and even the melders of the other academies were powerhouses, not to mention Astral 10. "Senior, there's only one chance in the competition. Is it over if you lose?" Silver suddenly asked with a grin. Little Pow replied, "Of course not. The loser has one chance to challenge the winner." "Alright, number 1 against number 2. Begin," Big Pow announced as he looked at the crowd. Xiao Luo walked out from the new students. He was number 1 and his opponent was Meng Yu. Lu Yin's eyes lit up when he saw Xiao Luo. He was the most curious about Dark Void's innate gift, the most wary of Silver, and the least able to see through Xiao Luo. This person was like a bottomless pit. Whether on Earth or here, Xiao Luo had never revealed his true strength. Lu Yin didn't know if Xiao Luo would reveal anything this time, but his opponent was Meng Yu, so the possibility of that happening was unlikely. Xiao Luo's gaze was gentle as he calmly looked at Meng Yu. Meng Yu's eyes flashed coldly as he glanced at Lu Yin. He didn't care about this person. He wanted to fight Lu Yin and Lulu. These two were the opponents he wanted the most. Student, it's not a good habit to be distracted in battle, Xiao Luo said with a smile. Meng Yu looked at Xiao Luo and decided to end this battle as soon as possible. He raised a palm and said, I won't hold back, so be careful. He then charged towards Xiao Luo, each step causing the grass to wither. A saber and a fist, two completely different weapons. The result shocked everyone. Schütz was sent flying along with his saber. Tisk, that's the Mavis family. That guy still dares to go easy on her, Big Pow exclaimed. Even before Schütz landed, Lulu didn't let him off. She quickly appeared beside Schütz and punched out. At this moment she was like a human-shaped Tyrannosaurus. Schütz was smashed to the ground, spitting out a mouthful of blood. Not far away, Hui Day Knight's expression changed when he saw Lulu's extreme speed. That speed seemed familiar, but why did it seem like a battle technique from the Day Knight clan? Boom. There was another explosion as Lulu's fist cracked the ground, but Schütz, who should have been pressed to the ground, was nowhere to be seen. Lulu turned around and was greeted by a blood-red sword. She dodged to the side and landed firmly on the ground. Their fists collided a few times before she looked at her opponent. You want to fight back? Welcome aboard. Stay tuned and subscribe to Han Li's Wuxia Adventures for more thrilling content. Chapter 137. The blood at the corner of Schütz's mouth was glaring as he gripped his blade tightly. He stared at Lulu in disbelief. This woman was too strong. If he hadn't avoided his vitals at the last moment, that punch would have ended. I apologize for my rudeness. You're an opponent worthy of respect, Schütz said solemnly. Lulu's expression relaxed and she snorted, Come, let's continue. I know that you're the strongest person in the Great Yu Empire's younger generation, but unfortunately you're not my match. I know. It's an honorable defeat, Schütz said in a low voice. The originally arrogant Great Yu Empire's strongest person in Astral 10 had completely abandoned that honor and faced reality head-on. He was at the bottom of Astral 10. Another explosion sounded out. Lulu's strength and speed made it impossible for Schütz to even retaliate, but he was always able to avoid his vitals at the last moment. This was a result of his battle experience and the benefits he had gained from countless battles. Even so, his injuries were still worsening. Schütz's struggle allowed Lu Yin to see the weakness of the Outerverse. He had come into contact with the strongest people in the Great Yu Empire's younger generation, and he had experienced Jerbaka's strength. Using the lightning arrow required external help, but the Innerverse top elites, especially the Astral Combat Academies, all used their star energy to simulate the realm of infinite change. This was the difference between them. Compared to the true geniuses of the Innerverse, the so-called powerhouses of the Outerverse were too ordinary. It was no wonder that Wendy Yushan had looked down on them all those years ago. Lulu soared into the air and punched down again. Her fighting style was very simple. She used brute force to break through technique. Schütz gritted his teeth and raised his blade, causing a blood-red glow to illuminate the area. This was his battle technique, but it was ruthlessly smashed aside by Lulu. As his blade shattered, Lulu's fist smashed into the side of Schütz's body, creating another huge crater in the ground. Schütz was sent flying by the shockwave and fell to the ground heavily injured. Big Pow shook his head and sighed. Second round, Lulu Mavis wins. Lu Yin walked over to Schütz and helped him up. Schütz clutched his chest. Thank you. You did well. She's from the Mavis family, which is one of the top clans in the Innerverse. Lu Yin consoled him. Schütz's gaze was resolute. No matter what race they are, they're all humans and humans have nothing to say if they lose. Lu Yin nodded. Schütz's bearing was admirable, and it reminded him of Zhang Dingteng, who was similarly unyielding and fearless. Such a person's future might be tough, but he would definitely achieve great things. Lu Yin admired such a person. Third battle begin. Silver walked out with a smile. He was number 5. Hui Day Knight walked out of the crowd. He was number 6. Hui Day Knight was a disciple of the Day Knight clan, one of the strongest clans in the universe. Lu Yin's expression turned solemn, but it wasn't because of Hui Day Night. It was because of Silver. Others might not know, but he knew that Silver was related to the Neo-Human Alliance. The Neo-Human Alliance was the human domain's most troublesome opponent. Even the Day-Night clan, the Mavis clan, and the Blaze Realm's various powers were at odds with the Neo-Human Alliance. Hui Day Night was a disciple of the Day-Night clan, but Silver's background was perhaps even greater. When he saw Silver, Xiao Luo's expression changed slightly and his gaze turned cold. Ever since entering Astral 10, Silver had only lost one ported battle. He hadn't shown much of his strength and seemed very ordinary. It was easy for people to overlook him, including Hui Day Night. He only wanted to fight Lu Yin, and he loathed the smiling person in front of him. Luminous finger. Hui Day Night growled as he took a step forward and appeared in front of Silver with extreme speed. His flickering dark gray finger pierced through the void, aiming straight for Silver's heart. Silver was still smiling, but there was a cold glint in the depths of his eyes. The butterfly knife made a soft sound, and although it was very small, it covered the area in front of Hui Day Night. Hui Day Night raised an eyebrow as he felt his fingers turn cold. He subconsciously avoided the knife, which brushed past him. What a pity. You dodged it. Silver smiled brightly as he casually looked at Hui Day Night. Hui Day Night's expression turned solemn. When the butterfly knife had sliced past him, he had felt a sense of danger. If he hadn't dodged in the nick of time, his fingers might have been cut off. This man in front of him was not simple. Lu Yin's eyes lit up. This was the butterfly. The butterfly knife had crossed swords with him several times, and they had always been evenly matched. Even though he had become quite strong, he could feel the butterfly's chill. Butterfly blade still felt a little cold at this moment. Silver's improvement speed wasn't much slower than his. High up in the sky, the Rain Master looked at Silver. This person can see through weaknesses. There was a whoosh, and this time Silver took the initiative to attack. The butterfly knife spun rapidly as it streaked through the void towards Hui Day Night. Hui Day Night's eyes flashed fiercely as he stared at the butterfly. The butterfly knife's trajectory was avoided, but the strange thing was that every time the butterfly to an outsider, it looked as if Silver had purposely bumped into the knife's edge. This feeling made Hui Day Night want to vomit. This had happened several times and the onlookers found it strange. Hui Day Night growled, Day Night soul tracing finger. He then pierced through the void and disappeared. Silver stood in place, his eyes widening as he felt the pain of his body being torn apart. The Day-Night clan's battle techniques were just that annoying, but that was all there was to it. In an instant, the butterfly's attack landed on Hui Day Night. The butterfly knife danced in the air as a snow-white brilliance flashed past. Blood splattered onto the grass as Hui Day Night's body appeared in a sorry state. There was a huge gash on his chest that shocked everyone. Sorry, you were too handsome when you stood there, so I couldn't help but cut you, Silver said with a smile. Hui Day Night's pupils shrank as he stared at Silver in shock. When he had fought Lu Yin with the Day Night soul tracing finger, he had been able to use it with a single finger. This person had actually broken through his battle technique before he could even attack. How was this possible? There was actually such a powerhouse amongst the new students. Coco was afraid as she stood in the crowd. She had always felt that Silver's smile was terrifying. The others looked at Silver solemnly as a chill ran down their spines. That flash of light had shocked them, and they felt that it would be difficult to avoid him. This person was very dangerous, so they had to stay away from him if they wanted to fight him. Michelle was shocked. She felt that this was ridiculous. She had thought that Astral 10 would not be able to recruit any elites after being banished to the Outerverse, but the previous few battles had overturned her understanding. Xiao Luo, Lulu, and even Silver were not simple. Although Hui Day Night had been defeated, he was still a disciple of the Day Night clan. Dark Void, who had surprised her the most at the start, and Lu Yin, who was gradually rising up. Astral 10's new students had given her too many surprises. Only now did she truly understand these new students. It wasn't just Michelle. Everyone else was the same. They had not interacted much with each other at the start, but now they were truly witnessing each other's strength. Silver wins the third match, Big Pow announced. Hui Day Night refused to accept the result. It's not over yet. Big Pow disdainfully replied, if his blade had gone any deeper you would have died. It's over. You've lost this match. Hui Day Knight gritted his teeth. He wanted to retort but he had nothing to say. He still could not understand how that blade had broken through his battle technique. That was a battle technique from the Day Knight clan, but it had been broken so easily. Either his opponent's battle technique was too strong, or his opponent's strength was too great. Either way, his chances of winning were not high. Silver smiled as he walked into the crowd. He turned around and smiled at Lu Yin before glancing at Xiao Luo. Fourth match, begin. After the previous 3 matches, everyone's attitude became much more serious. The students around them were not simple and they could not treat them as if they were from the outerverse. Zhao Yilong slowly walked out. He was number 7. On the other side, Coco carefully walked out. She was number 8. Good luck, Coco. Zora shouted, giving the girl a fright. She was already nervous, but now she was even more nervous. Lulu patted her head. Don't be afraid, girl. Go. Coco blinked. Luyin laughed. This girl was too nervous. Zhao Yilong's expression turned ugly. He had been expecting an intense battle, but he was disappointed when he saw that his opponent was Coco. No matter how he looked at her, she did not seem like a powerhouse. Let's go, sister, Lulu encouraged her again. Coco was helpless. She took a deep breath and walked out to face Zhao Yilong. Zhao Yilong's simple sword reflected a cold light, and his gaze was icy. When she saw this, Coco took 2 steps back and pursed her lips. Her gaze was resolute. She had entered Astral 10 with her own abilities, so she was not afraid. Suddenly, a giant syringe appeared. Everyone was stunned. Was that a syringe? Even Zhao Yilong was stunned. Aside from Lu Yin and a few others, most of the people present had never seen Coco's innate gift before. The giant syringe's appearance was truly shocking. I'm ready, Coco said crisply. On the other side, Zhao Yilong gripped his sword hilt, unsure of what to do. His opponent was still a girl and she was the youngest of them all. The situation reached a stalemate. Admit defeat, Zhao Yilong said in a low voice. Coco shook her head. No. Zhao Yilong frowned. I won't hold back. Coco bit her lip. Come. Zhao Yilong's eyes narrowed and he casually waved his hand. A slash streaked through the void towards Coco, but her body suddenly vanished at an unimaginable speed that shocked everyone. Zora smiled. Windrift Hall's rules dictated that 2 people should form a team. She and Coco were on the same team. Zora would take care of any danger while Coco was a healer. Even so, Coco was not completely powerless. Her endurance was very strong, or else she would not have been able to survive 3 void attacks during Astral 10's entrance exam. More importantly, she had mastered a speed technique from Windrift Hall. Coco's speed surprised even Lulu. It was not any slower than her white flash. Lu Yin was just as surprised by her speed. Zhao Yilong's slash missed Coco and he raised his brows and flicked his wrist. Multiple slashes swept through the void, sealing everything within 100 meters. It was an all-encompassing attack, but he still could not touch Coco. Her figure seemed to be able to blend into the void and avoid all of the attacks. Zhao Yilong's expression turned serious. I'll ask you one last time. Do you admit defeat? Coco shook her head. My myriad sword's peak is unparalleled in the universe and can even shatter the void. It's useless for you to hide in the void. Don't blame me if you die, Zhao Yilong said in a low voice. He pressed down on his sword hilt and exerted a bit of force. 10 swords in one. Zora was shocked. Welcome aboard. Stay tuned and subscribe to Han Li's Wuxia Adventures for more thrilling content. Chapter 138. Coco's eyes lit up as she hurriedly dodged. Zhao Yilong's sword streaked across the void and cut down a piece of cloth, but it didn't hit her completely. How many times can you dodge? Zhao Yilong growled as he unleashed a series of slashes that dazzled the eyes of the onlookers. All of them were 10 swords in one. Zhao Yilong was able to easily execute such a shocking sword technique. Although Coco was able to evade his attacks, it was becoming increasingly difficult for her. Lu Yin's face grew solemn. Back when the Rain Observatory had distributed the gifts, Zhao Yilong had snatched them away. That was when Lu Yin had come into contact with Zhao Yilong's sword techniques. 10 in 1 was definitely not Zhao Yilong's limit, He might have been able to do it when he was a sentinel, but now that he was a melder he would definitely be even stronger. Coco panted heavily as she continuously used her extreme speed to evade Zhao Yilong's attacks. Occasionally she would use her syringe to block the attacks. During Astral 10's entrance exam she had used this method to withstand 3 void attacks. Her syringe had not been scratched at all, and it could be said that it was exceedingly tough. Even now it was able to withstand Zhao Yilong's attacks. It didn't take long for Zhao Yilong's attacks to change from 10-1 to 20-1, then 50-1 and finally, 101 that shook the void and forcefully knocked Coco out of her trajectory. The sharpness of the attack pierced through the syringe and sent her flying. Coco's face paled as she dropped the syringe. Enough, Coco admits defeat. Zora shouted as she stood in front of Zhao Yilong. Zhao Yilong sheathed his sword, his gaze calm. The others weren't surprised by Coco's defeat, but they were surprised that she could force Zhao Yilong to use 101. As expected of a disciple of Myriad Sword's peak, the might of 101 was shocking. Seeing Zhao Yilong reminded Lu Yin of his powerful fiancé. She was also a disciple of Myriad Sword's peak, but if Zhao Yilong could do 101, then she could probably do 1001. Zhao Yilong wins the 4th match, Big Pow announced. Coco hugged her syringe and walked back to the crowd with her head lowered, looking somewhat unwilling to accept the result. Lulu hugged her and exclaimed, "Little girl, you're pretty fast. You should compete with me another day." "I don't want to compete with you. What if I beat you up?" Coco pouted. Lulu was unhappy. "What are you saying? Do you think I'm that kind of person?" 5th match, begin. Lu Yin walked off the stage and faced Zora. Zora stood in the middle of the arena, her eyes flashing. At first she had been worried about meeting Lu Yin, but after watching the previous 4 battles she no longer cared. None of those people were much easier to deal with than Lu Yin. Zhao Yilong, for example, had been able to fend off 100 swords combined into one. They were all a bunch of freaks. She had thought that Astral 10 wouldn't have any powerful students in the Outerverse, but it seemed like the opposite was true. Speaking of which, the difficulty of Astral 10's assessment couldn't have been the same as the other academies, right? If that was the case, then anyone who could pass the assessment would have to be very strong to meet the Innerverse standards. At this moment, Coco saw Schutz in the crowd and politely walked to his side. Your injuries are quite serious. Do you need me to treat you?" As he spoke he took out a large syringe. Schutz wisely refused. The Windrift Hall focused on healing, but healing alone was not enough to allow one to survive in the Innerverse, which was filled with powerhouses. Coco had just shown him her extreme speed, and he was now curious about Zora's strength. "I know I can't beat you," Zora suddenly said as she stared at him. Lu Yin was astonished. "So? I'm going to use my strongest battle technique. Please go easy on me," Zora said seriously. "Brother Lu, please go easy on me," Coco shouted from the side. Lu Yin laughed. "All right, I'll do my best." Zora took a deep breath and a large silver needle appeared in her hand. It flickered with a cold light, causing Lu Yin's scalp to go numb. If he was pierced by that needle he would die of pain. The next moment, Zora charged towards Lu Yin and unceremoniously stabbed her needles towards his forehead, but he easily dodged them. Zora pointed at his abdomen, but before her finger could reach him, a gust of wind struck his abdomen. His body went numb and he instinctively retreated. Zora growled and shattered the needles, scattering them all over Lu Yin as she pointed at him with 2 fingers. Coco's eyes lit up. This was the Windrift Hall's battle technique, Meridian Severing Finger. It attacked a person's vital acupoints and sealed their star energy, even immobilizing them. It was one of the top battle techniques in the Windrift Hall. Lu Yin could sense that every strand of energy from Zora's fingertips had a purpose in mind, and he didn't want to be beaten up like a fool. He raised his palm and a shockwave rippled out. With a bang the ground was shattered and the void trembled. Zora couldn't help but stumble back a dozen steps. She exhaled bitterly, she had lost. Lu Yin retracted his hand. He hadn't used the Space Render Palm in a long time. The 6-fold Space Render Palm had been controlled perfectly, forcing Zora back without injuring her. "I admit defeat," Zora said straightforwardly. The others looked at Lu Yin strangely. Lu Yin hadn't displayed any strength in this battle, but that was exactly why he was so frightening. He was just like Xia Luo, able to defeat his opponent without using any battle techniques. He was unfathomable. Lu Yin wins the 5th match, Big Pow announced. Lu Yin nodded at Zora and walked back to the crowd. He pressed his hand against his abdomen, feeling a slight pain and numbness. The Windrift Hall was truly not simple. It was no wonder that they could do so well in the Innerverse. The difference between him and Zora was too great, but even so he could still feel the pain. 6th match, begin. Everyone was solemn. Of the 12 new students, only 2 had yet to fight, Michelle and Dark Void. These 2 were definitely different from the rest of Astral 10's new students. One had broken the rules to join the 10 Arbiters Council as a melder, while the other's innate gift was strange and unfathomable. The battle between these 2 was definitely the most interesting of all the new students. Everyone step back, Little Pow warned. Everyone retreated one after another, leaving only Michelle and the indifferent Dark Void behind. The 2 didn't waste any words and immediately attacked. Michelle took out a red short bow from her cosmic ring and used her star energy to form arrows that she shot at Dark Void. Each arrow caused the void to distort and the air to be compressed into liquid, causing the clouds to tremble. On the other side, Dark Void didn't even move. The void in front of him inexplicably exploded, completely blocking Michelle's star energy arrows. The others were shocked by the oppressive shockwaves and the strength of these 2 students. Each of Michelle's arrows was comparable to Zhao Yilong's 100 swords as one, and each arrow caused the void to tremble and the ground to crack. However, such a powerful and frequent attack was easily blocked by Dark Void, which was shocking. Zhao Yilong's expression turned ugly. He had thought that it was rare for him to reach the Melder realm with his 100 swords as one technique, but the 6th match had already dealt him a blow. If he had been the one to face Michelle's continuous attacks, he might have already lost. The intense attacks were accompanied by shockwaves that swept out in all directions. The ground seemed to be split apart by countless forces, and the area of impact grew larger and larger until Coco couldn't even breathe. He knew that Michelle was strong since she had joined the 10 Arbiters Council, but Dark Void's strength still shocked him. After all, this person was an Outerverse native and it was quite rare for him to be able to reach such a level. The ground trembled as Michelle's attacks grew more and more ferocious. Each arrow not only carried a terrifying sharpness, but they also sealed the void and distorted the surroundings with the power of tremors. Dark Void's expression remained indifferent, and everything within 100 meters of him had caved in and turned into ruins. The grass had even been pulverized. After a full 2 minutes, Michelle's bombardment finally ended. She panted slightly and stared at Dark Void in shock. He hadn't even taken a single step back. Xiao Luo stared at Dark Void in amazement. If he wasn't wrong, this person's innate gift was truly terrifying. Silver's smiling expression froze a little. Lu Yin narrowed his eyes. "Are you planning to keep defending like this?" Michelle asked coldly. Dark Void looked at Michelle, still as indifferent as ever. He slowly raised a hand, revealing his black fingernails. Michelle felt a chill run down her spine when she saw Dark Void raise his hand, and she instinctively dodged. A black shadow flashed past where she had been standing, followed by a terrifying explosion that shattered the void. The scene in front of everyone's eyes shattered like a mirror, and the terrifying shockwaves sent Michelle flying back more than 10 meters. Everyone's expressions changed. This was an attack that had broken through the void. It was impossible. There were almost no melders who could do such a thing, and Astral 10 shouldn't even exist. However, it had indeed happened. Dark Void had shattered the void. Everyone was stunned as they stared at Dark Void in shock. Lu Yin's eyelids twitched. That attack had been terrifying. Little Pow's expression turned grave. "That's why I told everyone to back off. Dark Void's innate gift is void explosion. If we're not careful, we'll be affected." Everyone was shocked. Void explosion? Just the name was enough to tell that it would be troublesome. Generally speaking, the void was very difficult to break, and even the most unstable void would require a limiter to do so. Only a small number of freakish melders could create cracks in the void, but Dark Void's innate gift was void explosion. This meant that the moment he awakened his innate gift, he was already standing at the peak of countless people. Michelle stared at Dark Void in fear. She knew that this person was terrifying, but she hadn't expected him to be this terrifying. Why hadn't he gone to the Innerverse? He should have been discovered long ago. and he should have been qualified to join the 10 Arbiters Council. Dark Void didn't say anything and just moved his finger. Michelle's expression changed and she dodged again. The spot where she had been standing warped, and an explosive shockwave swept out in all directions. The ground was pulverized like paper and the shockwave spread out for 1,000 meters and even further. Everyone retreated once more as no one wanted to be affected by the attack that tore through the void. Thick smoke billowed out and Michelle's back was drenched in sweat as she stared at Dark Void. Every time Dark Void's finger moved, she would dodge. Dark Void stood still while she dodged like a mouse. Michelle had never experienced this before and she felt like she was being crushed. High up in the sky, the Rain Master sighed, "What a powerful innate gift. It's a pity that this child's heart is too dark. That kind of experience means that he won't be able to open his heart to anyone. What a pity." The Sand Master spoke in a low voice. This kind of innate gift would be terrifying even in the first 3 academies. There are very few who can match him within the same realm, but he's not invincible. He only knows how to release his innate gift, but he doesn't know how to truly use it. He's still too young. "Leave it to me," the Rain Master said. No one objected. Boom. The void exploded once more and Michelle's face paled as she panted heavily. Her clothes were torn apart, revealing her snow-white skin that was dazzling. Welcome aboard. Stay tuned and subscribe to Han Li's Wuxia Adventures for more thrilling content. Chapter 139. The others felt that it was a pity. Michelle was already very strong but she had met a monster. Very few of them had been able to last as long as Michelle, and some of them might not even be able to withstand a single blow. She can't take it anymore. It's about to start, Big Pow muttered to himself. He had not forgotten that Xiu had also forced Michelle to use her innate gift. Michelle's eyes turned cold as she dodged another explosion. The red in her eyes deepened. She had not expected to use her innate gift in the first battle. She had no choice but to use it against this monster. In the next moment, red lotuses bloomed beneath Michelle's feet. They were bewitching and beautiful, capable of captivating anyone who saw them. At that moment, Michelle looked like a demoness as she stood atop the lotuses. Dark Void moved his finger and a black streak streaked past Michelle. Michelle's eyes flashed red as she lifted her foot and disappeared from where she was standing. The void where she had been standing exploded, shaking the ground. Michelle reappeared 1,000 meters away at an unbelievable speed. She raised her hand and red dots of light condensed into a red lotus as a bow and an arrow as she shot towards Dark Void. The red arrow attracted everyone's attention as it adorned the ground. Dark Void flicked his finger and the black light streaked across the void, blocking the red lotus arrow's path. There was no loud sound when the two collided, but faint cracks spread through the void. These were spatial tears. Their attacks had caused the void to collapse. This scene was quite shocking and it would have caused a commotion in any other academy. Only a handful of monsters could cause the void to collapse with the strength of a melder. As the void collapsed, the black light and the red lotus arrow cancelled each other out. The two attacks were evenly matched. For the first time, Dark Void was surprised. His finger trembled again and another black brilliance descended upon Michelle's head. Michelle dodged with the help of the red lotus, and the red lotus arrow shot towards Dark Void. Dark Void blocked it with the void explosion and the whole space exploded. It was just like the beginning, but the power was on a completely different level. The two's battle covered a large area and their attacks were frequent. The onlookers felt their scalps go numb as not many dared to come into contact with such an attack. Even ordinary Lemeters from the Astral Combat Academy would find it difficult to escape unscathed. Suddenly, a red lotus arrow was shattered by the void explosion. Everyone was shocked. Was the victor about to be decided? The spatial explosion swept towards Michelle and swallowed her in the blink of an eye. Everyone's faces paled. Not good, Michelle's life was in danger. However, no one came to his rescue because in the next second, another Michelle appeared behind Dark Void. She stepped on a red lotus and aimed an arrow at Dark Void before shooting it out. Dark Void's attention was focused on the other Michelle. He didn't expect another Michelle to appear behind him. This wasn't extreme speed but rather a clone. The Michelle that had been swallowed by the void explosion turned into red lotus petals and shattered. Behind him, a red lotus arrow shot out and hit Dark Void. Everyone was dumbfounded. They were shocked by Michelle's talent, but they were also looking forward to the outcome of the battle. There was no need to doubt Michelle's strength. Being struck by her at such a close range, it should be over. With a loud bang, Dark Void's body was sent flying dozens of meters away. He fell to the ground, causing a cloud of dust to rise into the sky. Everyone was silent as they stared at this scene. Both Big Pow and Small Pow were watching. They could not easily decide the outcome of this battle. Michelle frowned. This battle had been too difficult. Her arrow just now should have been enough to decide the outcome, but for some reason she felt that it was a bit lacking. Everyone watched on. Not long after, a soft sound rang out. Within the cloud of dust, Dark Void pressed his hand against the ground and slowly stood up. Everyone felt a chill run down their backs. He was still fine. No way, he's so abnormal. Michelle clenched her right fist. Her red eyes glowed brightly as she stared at Dark Void within the cloud of dust. Dark Void slowly walked out with an indifferent expression. Looking at his body, there wasn't a single wound. Only the clothes on his back were torn, revealing the tattoo of 3 green leaves. Shamrock Enterprises? Zora cried out. Everyone stared at Dark Void's back. The tattoo on his back was the logo of Shamrock Enterprises. Michelle was surprised. Shamrock Enterprises. So this person was from Shamrock Enterprises. Rumor has it that Shamrock Enterprises specializes in finding geniuses in the universe and allowing them to grow freely. They'll only be recalled once they reach a certain level. I didn't think that it was true. This person is a genius discovered by Shamrock Enterprises, and they call him a seed, Zora said with a serious expression. As members of the Windrift Hall, which was similar to Shamrock Enterprises, they understood the enormous company very well. It was precisely because of this that they knew how terrifying a seed was. Every seed chosen by Shamrock Enterprises was an absolute genius, and once they matured they would be terrifying. Michelle had obviously heard of this rumor as well, and her face paled. The person in front of her was a seed of Shamrock Enterprises. She had heard from her sister that Shamrock Enterprises was a colossus in the universe, and being chosen as a seed was 100 times more difficult than entering the Astral Combat Academy. Dark Void faced Michelle and raised his hand again. Michelle shook her head and bitterly said, "There's no need to fight. I admit defeat." Everyone was shocked. Lu Yin sighed. Michelle had used up all of her star energy. Her innate gift was very powerful, but it also consumed a lot of star energy. On the other hand, Dark Void's innate gift did not consume much star energy at all. What a terrifying innate gift. Dark Void wins the 6th match, Big Pow announced. At this point the 6 matches had ended, and the victors were Xiao Luo, Lulu Mavis, Silver, Zhao Yilong, Lu Yin and Dark Void. This result was somewhat surprising. Hui Day Knight and Michelle's defeats had been unexpected, but Xiao Luo and Silver's strength had exceeded everyone's expectations. These two had remained silent ever since entering the academy, and they had barely fought in ported battles. Dark Void was also terrifyingly strong. When they thought of Dark Void, everyone subconsciously looked at Lu Yin. If nothing unexpected happened, he would be Dark Void's opponent in the 2nd match. "Brother Lu, it's okay to lose. He'll catch up in the future," Coco consoled as she tugged at his arm. Lu Yin was speechless. He might not lose. Coco pursed her lips. Even Sister Michelle's terrifying attack didn't hurt him at all. There shouldn't be anyone who can beat him. Lu Yin laughed. He didn't know how many people had noticed, but it wasn't that Michelle's attack hadn't hurt Dark Void. He had just blocked it. There was a layer of protection on his back, and that arrow hadn't even touched him. More accurately, that arrow hadn't been powerful enough to break through that layer of protection. Michelle's strength had been overestimated. She had only been able to create spatial tears because of Dark Void's innate gift, and she couldn't have done it on her own. Otherwise, she wouldn't have stayed in the rain for so long to obtain the Rainmaster's gift. Lu Yin didn't feel the need to explain this to her. Cough cough. In order to not waste time, the tournament will continue. The 7th match, Xiao Luo versus Lulu Mavis, begin, Big Pow announced. Xiao Luo walked down the stage and looked at Lulu warmly. Lulu bumped her fists together, causing a series of thumping sounds. She was clearly a cute girl, but her style was very valiant. Every time he saw Lulu's eager expression, he was reminded of that sea turtle from Earth. This girl was truly fearless. Be careful, this isn't a spar, so I won't hold back, Lulu provoked, looking at Xiao Luo. Xiao Luo smiled. You didn't hold back during the spar either, but you've become a melder and are even stronger. You have to be careful. Lulu flung her long hair and charged at Xiao Luo, causing the ground to crack and creating a shocking explosion. Xiao Luo's eyes flashed and he took 2 steps back to avoid the attack. Lulu's fist struck the void, causing the air to conical and distort. Xiao Luo's hair was blown back by the shockwave and he took a few more steps back. Lulu snorted and white flash disappeared. When she reappeared, she kicked out with a dull thud. Xiao Luo raised his own leg as well and the two collided. There was a thump as the ground shattered without warning, and both of them sank into the ground at the same time. A huge crack spread out from the crater until it reached their feet. The crowd was shocked. Both of them hadn't used any battle techniques, so how could they be so powerful? Michelle was shocked. She could feel the pressure from the shockwaves. These two were very strong. Boom, boom, boom. The ground trembled as the cracks expanded. The group was forced to hover in the air as they watched the ground shatter. This level of destruction was comparable to the one caused by Michelle and Dark Void's battle. The only difference was that Michelle and Dark Void had attacked from afar, while Xiao Luo and Lulu had fought in close combat. Boom. Lulu was shocked by the collision. She knew from their first battle that Xiao Luo had a strong ability to weaken star energy, much stronger than when he had sparred with her. She hadn't used star energy at all and had only competed with physical strength, but Xiao Luo had actually withstood her attack. She was from the Mavis family, and she was unwilling to lose to him in a contest of strength. If Xiao Luo won, it would be even more humiliating. The Mavis family had never suffered such a loss before. Lulu shouted, and the phantom of a towering tree appeared behind her. Her strength suddenly increased and she sent Xiao Luo flying with a single punch. She appeared in front of him with a white flash and punched him in the face. Xiao Luo was sent crashing into the ground, and the ground within a kilometer was pulverized. The shockwaves spread out in all directions with Xiao Luo at the center. This attack was more destructive than all the previous battles combined, and the ground within a kilometer could no longer withstand it. A huge crater appeared as dust and smoke rose into the sky. Coco covered her mouth. That's terrifying. Lu Yin's brows rose. Her strength was even greater than before. The Mavis family members were all human-shaped tyrannosauruses. Floating in the air, Lulu's expression turned ugly as she looked back at the crowd. I lost. Everyone was shocked. She lost? What did that mean? At this moment, Xiao Luo patted his clothes with a bitter smile and looked at Lulu. Couldn't you have used a little less strength? You almost broke me. Lulu rolled her eyes at him. Why are you still talking so much when you've already won? From the crowd, Big Pao announced, the winner of the 7th match is Xiao Luo. Everyone was puzzled and even Michelle couldn't tell what had happened. Lu Yin stared at Lulu's neck where there was a faint red wound. It wasn't bleeding, but if it had been any deeper, Lulu's neck would have been gone. This was Xiao Luo's attack, but when had he attacked? He hadn't seen it clearly. Welcome aboard. Stay tuned and subscribe to Han Li's Wuxia Adventures for more thrilling content. Chapter 140. The battle caused Silver's eyes to completely open, and a trace of shock flashed through his eyes. Dark Void stared at Xiao Luo and his fists unconsciously clenched. Not far from the teleportation stone, the trial master looked into the distance at the smiling young man. There's an endless stream of demonic geniuses. The Starsibyl sect was right. This generation is about to undergo a huge change. In the treasury, old Kai muttered to himself, many great powers freeze their innate geniuses in order to wait for the Starsibyl sect's divination to break out of the ice in recent years and maintain a youthful skeletal age. This generation is about to undergo a huge change. Did this child awaken from the ice as well? The 8th match, Zhao Yilong vs. Silver, begin. Big Pao announced. The arena had been moved dozens of kilometers away, as the original location had already been destroyed. Zhao Yilong walked out with his sword in hand, staring coldly at the smiling Silver as he slowly walked out with a serious expression. The crowd fell silent as they all favored silver for this match. Even Hui Day Knight had been defeated in a baffling manner. Silver gave them the same feeling as Xiao Luo, both unfathomable. "Sorry, I admit defeat," Silver said. Everyone was shocked. He actually admitted defeat? Big Pow was astonished. "Are you sure?" Silver nodded with a smile. "I'm not a match for a genius from Myriad Swords Peak. His 100 swords combined into one is terrifying." Zhao Yilong was furious. "You're underestimating me." Silver beamed. "Of course not. I really admire Myriad Swords Peak's eldest senior sister, Her Excellency Wendy Yushan." He then turned to smile at Lu Yin, which made Lu Yin want to punch him. Zhao Yilong stood in front of Silver with a sinister expression. "You're not allowed to admit defeat. Fight me." Silver looked at Big Pow. Big Pow was helpless, as this was his first time encountering such a situation. However, since the person involved had admitted defeat, there was nothing he could do. 8th match, Zhao Yilong wins. "I don't agree. He's clearly looking down on me." Zhao Yilong snarled as he pointed his sword at Silver. "Don't back down. This is the freshman competition, not a game." Silver cackled. "Instead of competing with me, why don't you save your strength for the next two? The final battle might be a three-way battle." Zhao Yilong gritted his teeth and stared at Silver. Little Pow patted Zhao Yilong's shoulder. "Forget it, you win." Zhao Yilong felt sullen as he did not want to win. "Go back. A win is a win," Big Pow said. Zhao Yilong gripped his sword tightly and glared at Silver. "This bastard." Silver was still smiling. His smile was so bright and heartless. Lu Yin didn't want to look at him as he was afraid that he wouldn't be able to resist punching him. His smile was too frightening. As he walked out, Big Pow's voice rang out. "The 9th match, Lu Yin against Dark Void. Begin." Everyone was solemn, as this match was even more exciting than the one between Michelle and Dark Void. Lu Yin's name had spread throughout the Astral Combat Academy, especially after he had defeated someone from the Phoenix family and ranked second on the Blaze Realms rankings. This had caused his name to spread throughout the Astral Combat Academy, and he was now known as one of the strongest melders. The outside world's impression of Astral 10 was limited to him, and everyone knew that Lu Yin was very strong. However, they were still waiting to see how strong he really was. Dark Void calmly walked out. It hadn't been long since his battle with Michelle, but there were no signs of battle on his body, aside from a small tear on his back. Everyone felt pressured when facing Dark Void, including Lu Yin. Regardless of whether it was because of his innate gift or something else, Dark Void's attacks could tear through the void. He was a powerhouse who could truly tear through the void. If Lu Yin wanted to win, he would have to use his innate gift to meet Dark Void's attacks head-on like Michelle had, or he would have to use an attack that exceeded Dark Void's limits. Lu Yin had already made his decision. There was no need for words, and Dark Void immediately attacked. Just like he had against Michelle, he slowly raised his hand and flicked his fingers. A black brilliance flashed and the void around Lu Yin exploded. Everyone held their breaths as they watched the scene unfold. Dark Void's attacks were clearly much stronger against Lu Yin than they had been against Michelle, and his attacks had sealed off the entire area. Although he didn't speak, that didn't mean that he didn't know anything about the outside world. He was also aware of Lu Yin's situation, and he had even seen it once. Lu Yin's gaze was calm as he bent his legs and disappeared the moment the void exploded. He tore through the void at a speed that caused the void to distort as he charged towards Dark Void. The two weren't too far apart, and when Lu Yin appeared in front of Dark Void, his afterimage hadn't even disappeared when the void exploded and swallowed him whole. This familiar scene caused everyone's eyes to widen, especially Michelle. She knew Dark Void's strength and defense better than anyone else, and Lu Yin was facing the same situation as her. Lu Yin raised a palm and slapped down, his gaze fixed on Dark Void. He saw indifference and disdain in Dark Void's eyes. This was a sign of extreme confidence in his defense, one that even Michelle had been helpless against. Lu Yin's lips curled up as he used the 9 stacks 9-fold shockwave palm. A formless current appeared on his palm. This was battle force. In the crowd, Big Pow, Little Pow, Xiao Luo, and Silver were all shocked as they stared at Lu Yin's palm. Boom! The shockwave crushed the ground and shook the void, causing an imperceptible crack to appear in the void. Dark Void's disdain turned to shock and then to horror. his face flushed red as he spat out a mouthful of blood. His body was sent flying by an indescribable force, pushing aside the current as he crashed heavily into the ground. Everyone was silent as they stared at Lu Yin in shock. No one had expected that Lu Yin would be able to defeat Dark Void with a single palm. It was too exaggerated. Dark Void was someone who could even take on Michelle's innate gift, the Red Lotus arrow, yet he had been sent flying with a single palm strike. Coco's jaw dropped and she couldn't take her eyes off Lu Yin. Michelle's pupils shrank as she clenched her fists. Xiao Luo was shocked, but then his lips curled up. This was interesting. Silver's smile grew even more brilliant. Big Pao and Little Pao looked at each other and saw the shock in each other's eyes. Dark Void had been recognized as someone who could participate in the finals, but they had never expected him to be eliminated here. They knew just how terrifying that palm strike had been. Battle force had penetrated his body and shaken the void. Dark Void must have been severely injured and he had lost this battle. Lu Yin looked at his own palm and saw that it was indeed the case. Just the 9 stacks 9-fold shockwave palm alone was not enough to break through Dark Void's defenses. Only battle force could penetrate the void and attack Dark Void's body through the void. Dark Void had underestimated Dark Void, but even if he hadn't been careless he would still have been defeated. Not only could he use a 9-fold shockwave palm, but with his current physical strength, Lu Yin didn't know how many shockwave palms he could withstand. Dark Void was no match for him. In the distance, Dark Void slowly moved his fingers and sat up. Everyone looked over. He wouldn't be as unscathed as he had been when Michelle's arrow had struck him, would he? Clearly they were overthinking things. Dark Void sat on the ground for a while before standing up. His clothes were torn and a clear palm print could be seen on his chest. Everyone felt their scalps go numb and the corner of his mouth glistened with blood. He looked up at Lu Yin and then quietly walked to the other side. Everyone breathed a sigh of relief. Thankfully he wasn't too monstrous and he could still be defeated. Hold on, everyone suddenly thought of something and looked at Lu Yin. Even Dark Void, who was so monstrous, had been defeated with a single palm strike. Just how strong was this guy? Michelle stared at Lu Yin. Astral 10 actually had such a strong person and he was only a freshman. This person's strength was one of the best among the melders in the top 3 academies. At this moment, Zhao Yilong was under the most pressure. With the unfathomable Xiao Luo and the unfathomable Lu Yin, he was the weakest. Victory goes to Lu Yin in the 9th round, Big Pao announced. He then continued, in order to save time, the final battle will begin. Lu Yin stood in place and looked at Xiao Luo. Xiao Luo walked out with a smile. Brother Lu, I didn't expect us to fight in the last round. Not at all. I've never been sure of your strength. Lu Yin smiled. Xiao Luo smiled. Your strength is easy to see, but you've improved too quickly. I don't know how strong you are now, so please go easy on me. Lu Yin raised an eyebrow. It's still unknown who will win. I'm curious about the technique you used to neutralize the desolate palm and the speed you defeated Lulu. As the two conversed, they completely ignored Zhao Yilong, who had also walked out. Zhao Yilong felt very awkward and he gripped his ancient sword tightly and raised it to face the two. The sword hummed softly and he couldn't wait to fight. However, his provocation didn't arouse their interest at all. 100 swords in one was pretty good, but it was only pretty good. Zhao Yilong had only been lucky enough to advance to the finals. Otherwise he would have been defeated by either Hui Day Knight or Michelle. He didn't have the qualifications to participate in the finals. Everyone's vision blurred as Lu Yin and Xiao Luo collided. It was an ordinary palm strike, but it caused a shocking shockwave that spread out. Not only did it shatter the ground, but it also shocked the crowd. Everyone retreat. Big Pao barked and everyone immediately retreated. Lu Yin's palms collided with Xiao Luo's and he was shocked. He'd used the 9 stacks 9-fold shockwave palm, and it was reasonable to say that it contained 9 stacks of force. However, less than 3 stacks had actually struck Xiao Luo. The other 6 had been mysteriously neutralized, causing its power to drop drastically. Xiao Luo's eyes lit up and his lips curled into a smile. There was actually 9 stacks of force. No wonder Dark Void couldn't withstand a single palm strike. With 9 stacks combined with battle force, it would be strange if Dark Void could withstand it. Xiao Luo had tried his best to neutralize 6 stacks, which was great. With a bang, the two separated at the same time. Lu Yin turned around and struck out with a serious palm. 7 stars revolved around his body as he activated the art of serious. He would never forget how Lulu had been defeated so soundlessly. Xiao Luo stared at Lu Yin's palm, his expression even more solemn than when he'd faced the 9 stacks 9-fold shockwave palm. Some battle techniques could be neutralized with star energy, but others were very difficult. He had to face this palm strike head-on. Suddenly, a slash flew towards Lu Yin. It was Zhao Yilong. This was a 3-way battle and he didn't want to be ignored. Scram! Lu Yin barked, his left serious palm striking towards Xiao Luo while his right hand casually struck out with 9 stacks. At the same time, Xiao Luo did the exact same thing as Lu Yin. He struck out with both palms, one facing Lu Yin while the other attacking Zhao Yilong. Zhao Yilong's strongest attack was instantly shattered, and the wind from the palms sent him flying 1,000 meters away. He spat out a mouthful of blood and collapsed to the ground. Boom! Lu Yin and Xiao Luo's palms collided in the next instant. Sirius palm with 7 stars was comparable to the 9 stacks 9-fold shockwave palm, and Lu Yin was certain that Sirius palm wouldn't be so easily neutralized. This was the first time Xiao Luo had displayed his terrifying strength. He didn't use any battle techniques, but instead countered Sirius palm and forcefully changed the direction of his attack. Lu Yin's 7 stars exploded, but they didn't hit Xiao Luo's body. Instead they landed on the ground beside him. Xiao Luo's eyes flashed and he flicked his finger at the critical moment, sending a formless shockwave towards Lu Yin's neck. You're tuning in to the Zhou Xian's Legacy YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.